Happy Tuesday, everybody, and welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. Special edition of the show for you today. We're going to go up live to a Utah football press conference that is starting any moment now. That's why we jumped on just a little bit early. Waiting for Kyle Whittingham to walk to the podium. He's going to be with Morgan Scalley, Jason Beck. Who knows what else today on deck, as they've organized this press conference as a sort of welcome to the off season. The timeline was a little bit odd for Utah football with coaching decisions being made. We didn't get any appearances from coaches on signing day, the winter signing day. So Kyle Whittingham and company sitting down. Show today and every day is brought to you by Les Schwab Tires. Tires, wheels, and accessories for whatever it is that you drive. Stop by the local Les Schwab today. The professionals there will get the job done right the very first time. And another reminder, the ESPN 792.1 FM have a cash kickoff going on right now. Your shot to win $1,000 cash to pay your bills. Text STASH, S-T-A-S-H, to 508-777-1000 for your chance to win. 508-777-1000. Text the word STASH. This is a nationwide contest. We go up to the hill and the press conference now.
We wait or get started.
Doing TVs in the back. All good. Appreciate everybody. We'll start off with the opening statement from Coach Whittingham.
Opening statement. Okay. Well, we're here today. A few reasons, other than giving you guys something to do, is never had a chance to really talk about recruiting, staff changes, and that type of thing. So I'll have just a brief intro here and then let you guys ask almost anything you want to ask, and then we'll proceed from there. So first of all, like every single program in the country, felt like we did a good job in recruiting. It was a blend of portal players and high school players coming in at the break, 30 altogether, 30 new faces, scholarship players at mid-year. There'll be another 12 to 16 that we add in the summertime, which will make for a over 50% roster makeover or the additions. And so that's the nature of college football now. That's something that is going to be, as long as the rules are what they are, in place. We did have an exceptionally large senior class based on the last several years, so that added to the turnover as well. But we're pleased with what we got out of the portal. Thought we had a net positive portal experience during the time it was open. Feel really good about the new hires on offense and what they bring to the table. Jason Beck, our offensive coordinator, excited about his schemes and his energy and what he'll bring. And then Mark Atawaya is our new running back coach from Washington State, and has proven to have a lot of energy as well. You may have seen a couple posts that he made, in the recent last 3 or 4 weeks. And then Micah Simon will coach our receivers, and so that is the change in the full-time staff. We've also had some analyst changes and so forth, but those are the changes with the full-time guys. So, that being said, what questions do you have?
Hey Kyle, can you talk about your quarterback situation with Devin Dampier and Isaac Wilson coming back, and we still haven't really heard from Cam Rising, but
Yeah.
where does your quarterback room stand right now?
It's almost a complete makeover. Isaac is the only scholarship quarterback that's returning. He tested the waters, the portal waters, determined that he wanted to be here when all was said and done, so we were excited that he decided to return. Devin Dampier obviously is a big addition for us, coming from New Mexico, same place obviously that our coordinator came from, and so knows the offense inside and out. And we have 3 other QBs that scholarship QBs we've added to the room, and so we feel like we're in good shape. Now, that being said, we felt like we're in good shape last year and ended up being on our 5th guy by the end of the season. So you got to hopefully stay healthy, and that'll be a big key. But the 2 big makeover rooms were the QB room and the running back room. Complete overhaul in the running back room. No returners, all brand new guys. So we like the guys that we brought in, obviously. So we'll see how they fare in spring. 4 of the 5 new running backs are here now. We'll have 1 addition in the summer, and then we'll find another one. We need to get to 6. That's our budget for running backs. Yeah.
And Tonawasa and Calhoun, those guys would have been starters on defenses, presumably, if they returned. But they didn't. How much did NIL play into it?
The absolute overriding factor was NIL. There's no doubt about it, in my opinion. And Cam ended up at a school in the Southeast Conference, and he would have been battling for a starting job, just like last year he was in that rotation. And Keanu was a very good player for us last year, but they both felt that it was made more sense to move on for their own reasons. But NIL is something that was certainly in the equation.
Kyle, looking at what Jason Beck did last year in New Mexico, what does he do on offense in terms of schemes and philosophy that kind of meshes with what you want to do here at Utah?
Yeah, well, it's more wide open, more spread formations, a lot of Q run game. Not quite as much implementation of the tight ends, although that being said, Jason is a really good judge of talent, who to use, getting the most out of each guy and tweaking things to fit the personnel, which is really critical, in football, obviously, is to play to the strengths of your players and not try to put a square peg in a round hole, and that's something that he's done a really good job of through the years.
Coach, a lot of the attention is on the players that left, but you held on to a lot of good players with NIL. What does that say about the support around the program and the program itself?
Yeah, we're doing what we can NIL-wise. It's always a challenge, and you always are wanting for more. I mean, that's the discrepancy between most schools and some of the real upper echelon schools is dramatic, and it's 5-6 times the amount of resources at some of those schools as other P4 schools, and so it's far from a level playing field, but we feel like we're able to hang on to the nucleus of our roster with a few exceptions, and going forward with the rev share, that's some people think that's going to level the playing field. I don't, because the other schools will still have pots of money coming from somewhere. So it's I still don't think that's going to be the solution, but that's the direction we're going, at least in the near future.
A couple of years ago, you said that the top 25 would pretty quickly reflect the top 25 NIL schools.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if a couple of years in, if that's what you're seeing. Are there tiers when you say the upper echelon? Are there tiers within the top 25, and what do those look like? Which is a long way of saying what should be a realistic goal for your team based on where you sit with NIL.
Yeah, we hear some schools have 30+ million of NIL resources, and some schools have 5. And so that's, like I said, there's a big discrepancy. I'm not privy to everybody's NIL budget, so I can't tell you exactly compartmentalized or in tiers, but I just know that the team that will ultimately win it, either Ohio State and Notre Dame, is both those are very, very well funded NIL-wise, to my knowledge. Again, I don't have the hard numbers, but just what you hear.
Kind of in the same vein of revenue sharing and NIL, obviously, when you have a smaller budget, I'm sure you have to kind of crunch the numbers a bit, choose what positions you want to go after. I'm curious from your perspective, how did you guys approach this offseason in terms of NIL and revenue sharing? Was it a retaining philosophy? I mean, walk me through that.
Yeah, retention is your primary concern, but you've also got to have an influx of new talent, so it's not your only concern, obviously. We use an NFL model. The NFL, as far as weighted, the positions that are weighted, the more valued positions, and the more, the positions you sink more money into, that's the bottom line. We use that, on an Excel spreadsheet and had it all mapped out, and we adhered to that pretty close. There's a few discrepancies here and there, but for the most part, where the NFL is sinking their resources into position-wise, we followed that same blueprint.
You have to replace 2 starting defensive tackles. Do you feel like you can do that from within, or is that going to be a priority in the spring portal?
That's a question that will be answered through spring. We have 3 returners that we really like, and then 4 freshmen that we're going to get a look at. We won't get a look at all of them this spring. We'll get a look at 3 of them, and see what they can do, and then make a decision after that, because the portal will reopen, the 15th of April, I believe it is. And so if we need, and that goes for every position, if there's a position that we feel needs to be bolstered or we're a little thin at, then we'll continue to shop the portal at that time, and we have some room in the roster to do just that. We will have room in the roster.
Coach, how do you go about reinventing sort of the way you establish your culture in the program with NIL?
Yeah, it's more challenging, obviously, with more guys new than returners in the fall. It's not quite as simple as it used to be, but we have a very strong culture here. The guys that are returning, it's up to them to educate, indoctrinate, the new guys into how we do things, and we have a certain way of doing things here, and we expect that to continue. But again, it's a little more of a challenge, but just because of the numbers that you're dealing with.
Coach, we'll ask Jason when he comes up here, but you've expressed dissatisfaction in the throw game the last couple of years. Does he have more of a emphasis on getting those big chunk yardage plays downfield?
Well, we want to be very balanced offensively, and I think that's something that he's done a great job of, is being balanced in his offense. And to me, the perfect season is 3,500 plus throwing and 2,500 plus rushing. If you can get 6,000 yards in the regular season, that's 500 a game, and you're really humming. You're humming along, and so that would be ideal. Whether we get to that or not, we'll see. But they were pretty darn close to that in New Mexico last year, I can tell you that.
You said that Isaac's the only returning scholarship quarterback, which implies that Cam's not coming back. Do you know what his plans are?
I've talked to Cam a few times, but that is really up to Cam to divulge that when he wants to divulge what his plan is. But we've certainly had communication, and you don't see him on our roster right now, so that's can tell you some things right there. But I would leave that up to Cam to outline exactly what his plan is.
I'm curious for a
Talk a
couple
little
more.
bit about Devin Dampier and Wayshawn Parker.
Okay.
What have you seen from them on tape that can, I guess, spread your offense around a little bit more and do what
Okay.
you might have not been able to do last year?
Well, Devin is a true, in every sense of the word, dual threat quarterback. I mean, he's a terrific runner. He's a very good thrower. We expect to get his completion percentage bumped up a little bit this year. We think that'll happen just through maturity and familiarity in the system. But he's a guy that he was only sacked 4 times last year, and that wasn't because of stellar protection all the time. He is very mobile in the pocket, has great pocket awareness, and to be that's a remarkable stat to only have 4 sacks. And so we think that he's obviously the perfect fit for this offense. He is. I mean, he proved it last year, and so we're excited to have him continue doing here what he pick up where he left off from New Mexico.
What's the specific challenge in the running back room of carrying on your identity and culture? Been going on for 10, 15 years of kind of backs with that identity. No returning backs and a new running back coach. What's the challenge there?
Well, we expect to continue to be efficient in the run game. I think coach at New Mexico was 250 yards or thereabouts plus a game. And I didn't answer your question about Wayshawn Parker. He is really a tough, physical running back, can run inside, can run outside, has great contact balance, breaks tackles, yards after contact, and he was just a freshman last year. I mean, he's got a big upside, and we're excited about what he can do, and saw a bunch of that on tape. And back to your question, I'm really old, so I forgot what you just said. What was your question? The challenge of the running back. Yeah. Well, we expect to, man, you get any water? Thank you. We expect to continue to be physical in the run game. That's been our calling card for a lot of years. And we don't, if you look at the numbers of coach's offense through the years, then it's not a pass-happy, just throw the ball around the parking lot. It's very balanced, like I said, and relies heavily on the run game. And I'm sure he'll give you more, clarity on that when he talks.
Last one.
Coach, can you talk about the potential possibility of Dorian Singer returning for 2025?
Yeah, that's being worked on. It's you got to have a case. You got to have reasons why. Much like the young man at Vanderbilt that got his extra year, and so Dorian would like nothing more than to return with us. I can't give you percentages or anything like that. I can tell you that it's in process right now, and we're trying every which way to see if we can get him one more year. I know the NC2A is talking about going 5 years to play 5, and if that is in fact adopted, what's the criteria as far as how it's implemented? Is it guys that just finished that didn't have all 5 years? Do they get to come back? Does it start with a new freshman somewhere in between? We don't know that, but the bottom line is we would love to have Dorian in the program for another year if we can somehow make that work.
All right, thanks a lot.
That's it. Okay, gotcha.
All right, so that's Kyle Whittingham, and it's going to be Morgan Scally next, it sounds like. Then we'll hear from Jason Beck. Not sure exactly how they're going to organize that up there. We're not getting the camera feed, but you heard some interesting things from Coach Witt there. That was nothing groundbreaking, no news really being dropped in that moment, but Dorian Singer coming back for another year would be phenomenal for Utah. We go back up to the hill for Morgan Scally.
I feel good. I'll feel better after spring. Spring's really where you find out where your depth is. And I think we did a really good job of evaluating needs in both the portal. Also got a JC transfer in Jeremiah Caldwell. Love the addition of length. It's such a huge, huge benefit in this defense, as much man coverage as we play. So Blake Cotton, Donovan Saunders, and Jeremiah Caldwell, all 6'2 plus. So really excited for this group. I loved the progress of Scooby Davis throughout last season. Smith Snowden's a guy that you're probably going to see outside this year as well. He's a guy that should not leave the field, as good as he is. And so I just look at the guys that we have returning. Sammy Hunter, Jason Stokes is a freshman that came in. Dion Mays is a guy that we love. So, this happens every year. Oh, you lost this guy, you lost that guy. How are you gonna? And every year, I think we've proven that we can do a pretty good job of reloading.
Morgan, I kind of wanted to ask you a little bit about Keanu's exit. How hard is it to see a guy like that go, that you've developed behind the scenes, built a relationship with, and what do you think of your defensive tackle depth now that he's gone?
Well, I love every player that comes into this program, that sacrifices and gives and buys into this culture. You love them, and when they leave this program, you hope they go on to be the men that you've taught them to be. And at the same time, my job is to develop the guys that we have in this program, and I do a disservice to them by spending much time on guys that aren't a part of our team anymore. I love our defensive tackles. You look at Dallas Vakalahi, he's a true freshman, and what he did. Very active, very productive. Aliki Vimahi's going to be back, which is a huge plus. He provides leadership and some senior leadership at that. Jonalea Ea is a guy that we've been fighting to put on the weight. And man, he's finally got there. So this is one of the most athletic defensive linemen that we have, and really excited for his length and athleticism to show up with the added weight. And then all the freshmen that are coming in, we're excited about all of them. Usually, if you're going to play as a freshman, physically you have to be ready, mentally you have to be ready. Two things that keep people from playing as true freshmen really is are they physically ready and mentally capable, and that's our job, is to coach them up. But all of those freshmen, every single one of them coming into this program, you're not going to have to spend a whole lot of time putting weight on. So we're fired up.
Coach, I'd be curious, you already kind of talked about Smith Snowden, but Smith and Teo specifically and Scooby too, what is the next step in their sort of progression?
I would say become compelling. Bring others along with you. The great ones that we've had, the Devin Lloyds, the Clark Phillips, the Cole Bishops, Joni Va, they brought others with them. They weren't just focused on their development. They were bringing other guys with them. Come in the room, let's go, let's work our steps, let's watch film together. So I think leadership is going to be the next step for those guys, and they've already done it, some of that. But you get as many new faces as we have, you have to have leadership, and those leaders gotta be compelling.
Yeah, you had a little bit of injury attrition with the linebacker room this past season. With them kind of getting back to full strength, what do you expect from them in terms of performance, taking a step forward?
Yeah, having Levani back is huge. I think his biggest concern was making sure that he got his jersey number back, number 3, and so John O'Hall had to give that one up. But love the progression of Jonathan Hall, moving him to linebacker. He's going to be a star in this league. Lander continued to work through his rehab as the season went on. He's going to be 100%. So you lose a guy like Karene, again, you're going to lose seniors, you're going to lose guys to transfers, but that's our job as coaches is to coach them up. It's to develop and teach, and you've got one of the best teachers here at the University of Utah, Colton Swan. He's done a great job with those guys. Love the depth that we have at linebacker, the influx of athletic freshmen. We could spend all day talking about the new faces, but I'm, zero issues with the linebacker depth.
Coach, we've talked a lot about the Big 12. What did you learn about the offenses in the Big 12, and how do you better defend them next season? There wasn't much difference between the Pac-12 to the Big 12. I'd say the biggest difference it was probably at the quarterback level. Now that was, maybe an anomaly, but last year you faced 3 first-round draft picks all starting in the NFL right now. So they've got good quarterbacks in the Big 12, but when you go up against Penix and Nix and Caleb Williams in one year, that's a huge deal. So very physical offenses, good coaches. That's what you would expect in a Power 4 conference, and that's what we have.
Morgan, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about NIL. Obviously, with revenue sharing, it's changed the model. You're a big relationships and culture guy. I'm curious, as the defensive coordinator, how do you feel like you've had to adjust or adapt to the new model in terms of still having that culture, but also adapting to the pay-for-play model that is college football now?
I just think that, players in the past have left your program because they felt like they wanted a new opportunity to play. Now it's for different reasons outside of that. My job is continue to maintain and strengthen the culture that we have. I truly believe that culture does matter, and for those that it doesn't matter to, that's okay, and we're going to get the right guys in this program. We have very good support. We have very good NIL, and another thing is people want to donate money to good people, good programs. We've got a very good program. Kyle Whittingham has done nothing but establish class and doing it the right way. And so that's why, in my opinion, we should not have an issue raising money.
Morgan, I think you have 1 year overlap with Jason Beck when you guys were both playing. We're just curious about your relationship with him, and what do you think he's going to bring to this offense that you're going to have to practice against every day?
I remember nothing about it. All I know is, I'm always watching offense, and as a part of the off season, I watched a ton of his offense, and I love it. It creates problems for defensive coordinators for a multitude of reasons. The formations into the boundary, the shifts in motions, the QB run game, a lot of these things, changing personnel groups as you go throughout a series, all that, causes defensive coordinators to really have to put in the work. And so I'm so fired up for this offense, for the quarterback coming in, Devin, and the QB depth that we have. So it's going to be interesting this spring going up against a new offense, because I love Andy and what he brought and his offensive scheme, but excited for this change.
Easier to recruit in Texas now that you're in the Big 12?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Morgan, I'm curious about what you need to see from Rabbit this offseason as he continues to develop into the safeties room.
Well, the number one thing was developing his body, and he's done that. I mean, usually you can tell how much it matters to a player based on what they do in their downtime. He came back bigger, stronger on his own. So he's already looking very explosive. His knowledge of the defense is only going to get better. He's going to be elite, in my opinion. So, good question. Okay.
Jason Beck. When we're ready, we'll start in with questions.
All right, who's up?
Jason, I'm curious, just walk me through the process of deciding to come to Utah and what you think you can do with this program now that you're here.
Yeah, just, when I hit that time of year and had some opportunities come up, and Coach Witt came calling, and know the program well, looking at it from the outside and following it over all this time. And man, what a great opportunity to be a part of such a great program. The success they've had over a long period of time, playing and winning conference championships. It was just a no-brainer for me to be able to join such a great program and to be a part of it.
How would you describe your offense to Utah fans that haven't seen a lot of it?
The offense is just kind of based around playing to your personnel, to your players. So it's all about identifying your best players and putting them in positions to have success and to play well. A lot of times that's driven through the quarterback. It starts with him. It starts with the O-line, with what they can do, and then it goes to the other skill people around them. But it's QB-centered and play to your personnel.
How do your schemes and your philosophy on offense kind of fit with the culture and philosophy here at Utah? I mean, how do they kind of work together, just from your early perspective?
Yeah, I do. We start with the who, like I mentioned, who the guys are, and then it's all about what they're doing and how they're doing it. And so the execution is the what. But with the culture, it's all about how, the competitiveness, the spirit, the heart, the fight. And so, man, we coach that out of our guys just as much as we do the execution side of things. Because we want those, every play, it's do I get the job done against the guy I'm going against at the highest level. So that competitive spirit, which I've appreciated about this program over all these years, it's evident, tough guys, playing physical, playing hard. That's what it's all about.
Coach, to kind of piggyback off of that, how beneficial is it for you to have the quarterback that played under you last season follow you to Utah?
Yeah, that was very positive, just in terms of he knows we'll tweak some things and adapt some things, but yeah, he's already up and running, so he's been in it for a year. And so just his example to help the other guys or to show what it's supposed to look like at a high level for the other guys to come around, and how that permeates throughout, the offensive guys is a big positive, as well as I know him. The other quarterbacks here, I'm going to really need to get to know them and what their strengths are and how to help them, where with Dev, I have that history of knowing him at a really high level, so you're already starting from that point. You're starting from a year in with a person, which is a huge advantage with that.
Jason, continuing on that line of questioning, what was the conversation like with Devin? As soon as you got this job, it didn't take much convincing. Does he want to continue to play in this type of offense? And also, there's been a history of injuries with quarterbacks here, obviously. He's a big runner. Do you want to continue that aggressiveness when he has the ability to take off?
So, starting with the first part, it was not guaranteed. I knew him and his family appreciated what we did and how we used him and that relationship. But with this world of you hit the portal and, we were talking about NIL earlier and all those variables, yeah, you never know what could happen or would happen. And so it was obviously great that it worked out the way it did, and you feel good about that, but nothing's guaranteed till it happens. So that was great. Along that thing of playing to guys' skill sets, Devin does have that skill set as a runner, but you do need to manage that depending on the bye weeks and rest. That you can't overuse, but at the same time, when you need to do certain things, critical points in game, critical situations, you got to go to what's going to be the best for you. And so there is an art to managing that and being smart about it.
And on the flip side, I've had as many guys get hurt just doing normal stuff, you know, standing in the pocket throwing it as I have running it. And he has a really good ability to protect himself. So he's not taking direct shots and those kind of things. And a lot of times guys who have that skill set, they are that way. As a runner, they can protect themselves at a pretty high level. It's more the other times that the injuries come up, you know, the unexpected type of thing. So, but yeah, you gotta manage that.
We were seeing 2 and 3 tight ends at a time deployed in Utah's offense over the last few years. How do you plan on using the tight ends, given who's on the roster now and how you like to play?
Yeah, it's if it's a strength, the tight end play, then man, we'll play with 2 tight ends. If it's so, it really is just that. You know, I kind of use that phrase, earn not given. Those guys earn the right for their role and what that looks like. And some years we've done a lot of 12, and we've even done this past year, we did a lot of 2 tight ends, 3 wideouts because of Devin's ability as the runner, because that was the guys you trusted, the circle of trust. 2 of those tight end guys were in there, and so we had them on the field quite a bit. Other years, it's been a lot more 11 personnel because of that. My first year at Syracuse, 10 personnel was our top thing because that was the strength of the thing. So it really is the who, and identifying the who, and you know, who's in that circle of trust, and then creating it around them with what they do.
Looking at his numbers from New Mexico, 58% if you round up completion, 12 touchdown passes, 12 picks. Do you think those numbers need to improve in the Big 12?
Oh yeah, definitely. And with a young guy, they should. You know, as he continues to grow and improve, they should improve. Absolutely.
Kind of piggybacking off of that a little bit, you obviously have a year with Devin. You guys know each other very well. Coming here to Utah, how would you like to see both of you guys kind of improve and elevate your games?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain, you know, reads and certain throws that we'll look to complete and do at a higher level. But you are, you know, now you're mixing in all these other skill guys and getting them on the same page with all that chemistry. So it's just a matter of that process, continue to grow, continue to improve, identify the guys here, the strengths here to play to, and kind of making that all come together, both for Dev, but for the whole room. You know, it's about developing and improving every guy in the QB room as the QB coach, and on the offense, you know, as the offensive coordinator.
Jason, as Kyle mentioned, Dorian Singer's looking for an opportunity to potentially have a 5th year of eligibility. Obviously, he has a really close relationship with Devin Dampier. I'm curious, what do you think he could bring to your offense if he is able to get that 5th year of eligibility and just having that relationship with Devin?
Yeah, I mean, he's a proven player in this league, and he's done it. So to have that back would be great if it worked out. And then, yeah, I'm assuming they got some pretty good chemistry from time together. So you're kind of, if that were to work out, you know, you're building on all that chemistry that they've developed over time. So, yeah, a lot of positives with those things.
Coach, you joined the program at kind of a unique time as the transfer portal opened and Utah kind of going through a makeover on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, you were involved with that. Just kind of walk us through that process of rebuilding and remaking this offensive unit and kind of how you see it.
Yeah, it's the portal's a funny thing, and that guys are just jumping in there constantly. I can't remember what the final numbers were, but a couple thousand. And so as guys hit the portal, and you're evaluating for the spots you have and the openings you have to fill, you know, we believe in you obviously watch the film, you evaluate, but it's also about getting references from people you know and trust that have connections to these players, because you want to bring in to have a really strong culture is you want to bring in guys that fit that culture. And so being able to make decisions based off who's a great fit and potentially avoiding guys who could be really good players but not a great fit, that's every bit as important as just the talent that shows up on tape. And the best way for that is through references, people you know that know them, that can kind of give you some info on them to make those decisions.
Thanks a lot.
All right, thanks guys.
Thanks all.
All right, Kyle Whittingham, Morgan Scally, and Jason Beck. Not going to lie, I was hoping to go a little bit longer. I wanted to hear more from all of those guys, but coaches, they're busy. They like to keep it concise when speaking with the media. All right, we're going to take a break because we have not yet taken a break. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back. I'm going to tell you the main takeaway, and I'm going to focus on Jason Beck. That's the new guy. All right, he said something that I think is crucial to Utah football's success in his 10 or so minutes. I'll tell you what that is when we come back on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Connell Show. We had a special interlude at the beginning where Utah football held a press conference kind of on a delay because we did not get the coaches speaking to us on the recruiting front around signing day. The program was in flux. They were trying to hire an offensive coordinator, finalize the deal that eventually brought Jason Beck in, obviously working hard in the transfer portal. And you heard him say, Kyle Whittingham said, 30 new guys. And by the way, that is not done. All right, 30 guys for the spring football roster, and there will be more after spring. Inevitably, somebody will decide, I'm not going to be part of the plans here. They'll move on. Somebody will get a phone call from an SEC school or a Big Ten power that has too much money to refuse, whatever. So the flux is not stabilized yet. And then you heard from Morgan Scalley. And then I think most importantly for those of us who obviously know Coach Witt and Coach Scalley very well, you heard from Jason Beck. First time he's been fully publicly available to the Utah football media after being hired from New Mexico, where he was part of that Bronco Mendenhall staff that actually had New Mexico turning things around and unfortunately didn't stay around long enough to see if they could get it all the way back on its feet. Bronco and a lot of his staff ended up at Utah State, of course. And then Micah Simon and Marcotte Tuwaya and Jason Beck are now here in Salt Lake City at the University of Utah. And the media here always does a great job. The Utah folks, Utah football folks especially, do a great job asking the right questions. He was asked about the tight end situation and asked about the personnel in the offense situation. Now, the answer that he gave, and if you missed the press conferences, they will be available at ESPN700sports.com, available wherever you find your podcasts. We'll cut that up and make sure it's available to everybody. But to paraphrase, he talked about how they did things at New Mexico, and he used this term circle of trust. And at New Mexico, they had a couple of tight ends that were in the circle of trust, even though that's not necessarily the way that he wants to do offense, right? 12 personnel and 13 and even 14 personnel. And we get real enamored with the idea of that because of how deep Utah's tight end room was last season. But the way that Jason Beck and this offense want to run, there's going to be a lot of 11 personnel. He said, I ran some 12, one running back, one tight end for the uninitiated, because those tight ends were in the circle of trust. And I don't care if it's tight ends. The reason that answer is important is because what you heard is a guy who basically, in not so many words, said, I adapted my offense to meet the personnel. And Utah is going to have to do that, especially in this transfer portal era, especially in a year when there's a brand new running back room, coaches and players, totally new, all new. And you don't know if you have that stalwart, staple, returning, I know exactly what to expect here in the run game. That's what Kyle Whittingham hopes is the case. We don't know. This offensive line is in a serious state of flux. There's going to be a lot of young players. Now, I believe that there will be young talent on the field. Lomu, young talent, already looks good. Spencer Fano looked good as a freshman, looked even better last year. These guys are going to be huge helps for Utah football, and the program has acknowledged and decided that that's an important position. We're going to keep these guys there. You're going to have a young offensive line next year, probably.
Yeah.
I don't know that Utah football is going to go out and grab a bunch of big money starters in the transfer portal after the spring window. I don't know that that's a possibility for them. So with all that in mind, hearing a guy like Jason Beck, who's going to be calling the plays, say, again, not a direct quote, but I'm paraphrasing for you, say that like that circle of trust is what matters. We're going to do. He trusts Devin Dampier, all right? He'll probably grow to trust Wayshawn Parker. He's going to trust Fano and Lomu and company at some point. Is he going to trust the wide receiver room? Is he going to trust the tight end room more? What matters is he's going to adapt his offense to the personnel. And it's such a relief to hear that, because the all in or in the way thing at Utah football that people, they paint it like it's live, laugh, love on their walls. That's a great thing until it's not. That's a great thing until you try to force a square peg into a round hole. Jason Beck knew the situation he was in at New Mexico last year, where they had excellent players at certain positions and not so excellent players at other positions. And he capitalized on the spots they had good players. And by the way, that defense, that New Mexico defense, was not good. That New Mexico offensive line was not good. You can go to YouTube, find some New Mexico games, and what's going to stand out to you is you're going to look at Devin Dampier and his escapability and his mobility, and you're going to say, okay, this could be a lot of fun if you take the governor chip off or if you leave the governor chip off and you let this guy use his legs. And the stat that supports that more than any other, Kyle Whittingham mentioned it. I will be hammering this home for everybody as we get an opportunity to have eyes on Devin Dampier in spring ball, although no one's going to touch him in spring ball. And then once that season starts in 8 months, this dude, behind a mediocre at best offensive line, was only sacked 4 times in an entire year. 12 games, the team itself gave up 5 sacks. Devin Dampier took 4 of those sacks. That is a hell of a stat. That was number 1 in the nation. The best team in sacks allowed in the entire country was a 5-win New Mexico team. And that's not because they had a bunch of NFL talent on the offensive line. That's not because even in their conference, they were over-indexed or over-powerful in that front 5. They just had a guy with incredible instincts and incredible escapability, and he took advantage of that. They took advantage of that, and drives stayed alive. You stayed ahead of the sticks in a lot of cases because you didn't take big-time negative plays like sacks. That is so critically important for Utah football because this year it is not going to go from the dreaded offensive output of this past season and the unfortunate offensive output of the previous season. A lot of that related to the attrition due to injury. You're not going to go from that to being number 1, number 2, number 3 in the Big 12 Conference. It's just not realistic. It's not likely. You're still going to have to do a little bit of growing personnel-wise. You're going to have to get some of those young offensive linemen a little bit further into their groove. You're going to have to get the chemistry along the offense, the running backs, the quarterbacks, the wide receivers, everyone to gel a little bit because it is a rebuild offensively. So going from, the bottom half of the conference to the top half of the conference, or the top, I should say, third of the conference, top fourth of the conference, it's going to be very, very difficult. But it's going to be a heck of a lot easier if you don't get behind the sticks and you don't have negative plays in your hashtag throw game. And that's what all this is about. This is all about balancing out the offense. And Kyle Whittingham said, ideally, I'd like 500 yards of offense a game. Okay. I love hearing that from a guy who's never had 500 yards of offense in a game. But you know what? This is an opportunity for Utah football, even with the consistent head coach, even with the culture intact, to reinvent itself a little bit on the offensive side of the ball. And for now, I'm going to stay optimistic. We'll see how it plays out in spring. I'm not promising you anything, but hearing Jason Beck say, the circle of trust is what matters. It's not necessarily my scheme that matters. Amen. Get the ball in the hands of the right players, whether that guy's a tight end, a running back, an old school fullback, an undersized Britton Covey-style wide receiver, doesn't matter. The best version of Utah offense and of college football offense, period, is you just get the ball into the hands of the right guys. And if the right guy in 2025 is going to be Devin Dampier and you're just going to ride that horse until the wheels fall off, see, I mixed 2 analogies there. You can't ride a horse till the wheels fall off because horses don't have wheels. But in any case, if he's the most reliable guy and you're just overworking him, you're just going to point to and say, well, you still don't have to play as much as Travis Hunter did last year. So get back out there, son. Let's go. I love what we heard from Jason Beck.
I do too. And to your point too, is like the amount of transfers of receivers that they got in the transfer portal, it's big. And they're getting pieces for Dampier or whoever's going to play the quarterback position for Utah next year, which is probably going to most likely be Devin Dampier. But the amount of weapons and Dorian Singer possibly coming back too is huge. And if Nate Johnson decides to go back to receiver, like he might, who knows, it's going to be huge for sure.
We'll see how it plays out. Get the ball into the hands of the playmakers, the philosophy, the agreement, the tacit agreement between a coach and his players of just being like, show me you can make a play and I will get you the ball, is like that is the root of good offense, in my opinion. So that's what it sounds like Jason Beck is willing to do, and miss me with all the, well, Kyle Whittingham's not going to let him do that kind of thing. Coach Witt is 20 years deep. He knows what his own mistakes have been offensively, and he is not the guy that he was 10 years ago when he was going through offensive coordinators, a fresh one every single season. He just isn't that guy anymore. So let's wait. Let's see how it goes. Got to take a break. We'll come back with the hot lunch. And yes, we're going to talk about the rumor mill that is turning and spinning and rapidly increasing its pace in the NFL. I told you it was a possibility. Every single coaching vacancy that comes up, Deion Sanders, his name is going to be attached. And now the Dallas Cowboys have either a dream scenario or maybe a nightmare. We'll get into that on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. On the Sean O'Connell Show. And then we'll get to some red and blue. Jerem Jordan going to stop by. BYU basketball. Got a big game coming up. They got a big recruit also at one of these Senior Bowl All-Star games. We'll get into that with Jerem Jordan here in about 7 minutes. Hot lunch today brought to you by Lemon Shark Poke. Delicious restaurant right here just east of our Broadway studios on 300 South in the ground floor of the old Judge Building. Go grab a poke bowl. Tell them you want the OC bowl. Get a little shoyu salmon in there, some ginger, some mango, the sticky rice. And they source everything locally that they can. And, of course, the fish comes in fresh. Gets his stuff from the same place that the fancy restaurants, the white tablecloth joints, I'm gonna be $250 lighter in my wallet when I go into one of these restaurants. They get their fish the same place from the same planes at the same time that Lemon Shark Poke. They really, really pay attention to the details on the fresh fish. So give them a shot. Tell them OC sent you. Presenters of the Hot Lunch today. We're going to bite down hard on it when it becomes more official, but at some point, you knew it was going to happen. The Dallas Cowboys were going to kick the tires on the idea that Deion Sanders could be their next head coach. And depending on who you listen to, depending on who you talk to, there's various levels of people thinking this is an actual possibility. But Jerry Jones and Deion Sanders have been in talks. And Jerry is one of the most unique characters in all of football, and so is Deion. Now, whether or not they can coexist, I think is a great question, but that is a soap opera I want to tune in to watch. That is the give me Hard Knocks, the early season Hard Knocks, give me the in-season Hard Knocks, give me the entire subscription. I will pay to stream whatever the show is that features Deion Sanders trying to navigate the Jerry Jones world of farce and folly. Give me this hire today. If I'm the NFL, I'm trying to facilitate this and make it happen. This is a ratings bonanza, especially if somehow the Cowboys can commit to Deion and say, we will do our damnedest to try to move up in the draft and get your son. He has put that qualifier out there, and I imagine that is one of the things, that is probably the thing that they talked about, that he and Jerry Jones talked about. Are you going to let me draft my son? Or more accurately, are you going to draft my son, Jerry? Because Jerry, his biggest flaw is that he thinks he's the smartest guy in every single room. And he thinks he knows more about football than actual football guys because he fancies himself an actual football guy, which, of course, you would if you owned an NFL team. That is not the same thing as living day in and day out and studying the film and all that. But Jerry gets to do things the way he wants to do them. Will he say to Deion Sanders, I will go get your son in the draft? Because if he says that, I think this is a done deal. You couldn't ask for a more perfect marriage, a coach that loves to steal the headlines, a franchise that loves to steal the headlines and be the most talked about. The only thing that I think would put a stick in the spokes that would be the problem and make this a non-starter was Jerry not being willing to say, well, I will go draft your son. What if he doesn't want Shador? What if he's got his eyes on somebody else? What if he thinks that Travis Hunter is the right play for the Dallas Cowboys because of his versatility? Jerry has to have Deion's vision for Deion Sanders' kids. And by the way, you want to talk about one of the only people in America that is in a position to say potentially, again, I don't know if he's going to be offered this job, but potentially to say no or to take a hard stand in negotiating with Jerry Jones. For every other football coach in the world, the Dallas Cowboys position is like, that's a dream job. That's on the short list of what can be the pinnacle. Because if you are the guy that returns the Dallas Cowboys to glory, you never buy another meal, you never buy another drink, you never buy another anything probably for the rest of your life. You are talked about as a legend because the Dallas Cowboys just have that effect. Unfortunately, in the last 2.5 decades, the Jerry Jones effect has been stronger, has pushed it the other way. He meddles too much. And I don't know if you could have two alpha dogs two dominant lions, I don't know if you can have them coexisting in that same zoo. Even if it is the biggest zoo in the NFL, I don't know if it could work. But they've known each other a very long time, so maybe Jerry Jones and Deion Sanders can work it out. To me, the crux of this is Deion's commitment to saying, I only want to coach in the NFL if I can coach my sons. And, of course, Jerry's willingness to play by those rules. Because he doesn't like playing by anybody's rules. He likes to be the one who sets the rules. And Shedor's a great player. Is he the guy that is he the number one guy? Well, I don't know. But because of what the rest of the NFL is doing, you probably, to guarantee that you're going to get him, you have to move from 12, I think that's where Dallas sits right now, all the way to 1. And that is going to be so incredibly costly.
Yeah.
And when Deion says, by the way, I want to coach my sons, I guess he's saying I also want an opportunity to coach Shiloh. Shiloh, I don't think is going to make an NFL roster. I think he's going to be like a free agent or maybe a 7th-round pick. I can't foresee him actually being on an NFL roster unless his dad's the coach.
Yeah.
And in that case, again, are you willing to play by those rules if you're Jerry Jones? You know what? This is a soap opera we'll be tuning in for. At least I will be. Plenty more to get to on the Sean O'Connell Show. We take a break and do a little red and blue with Jerem Jordan next. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. part of our Big 12 at noon coverage, brought to you by Mountland Supply. Go to mountlandsupply.com or stop by any of their brick-and-mortar locations. Tell them OC sent you. Jerem Jordan, big part of our show, and we love it. Welcome again, sir. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. I always shop and say, OC sent me, and I just hope there's some promo that you guys have run at that business. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, occasionally you might get a discount. More often they'll charge you extra if you say that OC sent you.
They're like, well, actually.
Yeah, like, oh, that guy, we don't like him. This is actually a 20% additional cost for you. So sorry about that in advance for the next time it happens to you. Deion Sanders to the Dallas Cowboys. You in or out on this?
I would be out because I like Deion in the league, in the Big 12. I think he provides a ton of juice. Obviously, his sons aren't there anymore, but what he has meant for an exposure and interest standpoint to the league has been awesome, highlighted by the Alamo Bowl, 8 million viewers for Colorado and BYU. I know a lot of that's for Colorado. I'm not naive to that fact, but I think all ships rise with the tide, right? So I would like that not to happen. I think Dallas, it feels like Jerry Jones would want more experience kind of in the NFL. So I'm not sure that Deion would be the best fit there.
We'll see how it plays out. It's worth, according to everyone, it's worth discussing right now. SportsCenter has been focusing more on that than on the playoff game that was played last night. But here we are.
Right.
We're
Deion, Cowboys.
yeah, and you know what? I fall for it too. I love it. We're here for some red and blue though. Talk a little BYU. Talk a little bit of Utah. BYU has some important basketball matchups, and we'll get to some hoop stuff. AJ DeBonsa once again proving his worth, proving his mettle at the level of competition he's at right now, at least. But I want to pick your brain about the commitment of McKay Madsen. 4-star athlete that I think projects probably best to be a linebacker, which means, hey, BYU with another fast athletic linebacker. Yay for everyone else. How big a deal is the commitment of this guy?
Hey, it's great to have back-to-back years where at the All-American game on NBC, you have a guy picking that BYU hat, right? Faletau Satuala did it last year, and again, it's this year. So I think that's great exposure, and it shows what Jay Hill and his defense coordinator recruiting awesomeness is doing on the recruiting trail, which is great. And so, yeah, mission first and then comes back. So it'll be a couple years. But anytime you can beat out Oregon for a recruit, I think that's big time. So BYU continuing to recruit at a higher level, which is great. You win, you get in a Power 4 league, and you do that, you see the benefits.
Well, the reason I wanted to start with this is because I think it matters in basketball, it matters in football, it matters in all the non-revenue sports. But there was a time, and you know this probably better than I do, there was a time where if you were an elite athlete in whatever the sport was and you happened to be a member of the LDS church, BYU had a great, great chance of getting you. And then when BYU fell on some harder times in some of those sports, of course, other teams moved in, and there's LDS coaches on staffs everywhere, and like Stanford did a great job with LDS recruits for a while, and Kenya Matalolo at Navy did a great job for a while. And I know that it's not like the be-all, end-all for families, maybe that it was in the 80s, but it still matters to a lot of these recruits. Are we inching towards a time again for BYU football where you can beat out Oregon and Alabama and Ohio State, especially if the recruit is LDS?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think that you're right. There was a time where not every member of the church loved BYU, but the ones that had any kind of positive mojo, and the fact that especially in the 80s, BYU was winning at the level it was. It's like you can come here and win a national championship or a Heisman Trophy. That was a reality, right? And now that BYU has an 11-2 season in the Power 4 league, we're kind of seeing well, wait, BYU was this close to being in the playoffs if they take care of Kansas at home or upset Arizona State on the road, and they go to the Big 12 title game. Who knows? The sort of excuses for why you wouldn't go to BYU outside of if you didn't agree with the honor code, which if you don't, then don't go to BYU. All good. The on the field and conference stuff, that stuff, there's no excuse for anyone who might be impeded by that. If BYU's in the WCC, they don't get AJ DeBonsa, even if they have Kevin Young. And Kevin Young's probably not coming to BYU if they're in the West Coast Conference. So it's the Big 12 has been a big deal for exposure and interest and recruiting, and everything has been elevated. It's what BYU's wanted for a long time. It's what they were hoping to get in the Pac-12 in the 80s, frankly. And so it's been a huge boon for the Cougars so far.
Because you mentioned it, I'll ask you a question about it. I haven't had cause to think about or worry about the honor code at all for the last few seasons, and I think that's the proper place when you're talking about sports, at least. I think that means that the honor code office and the university and BYU and the teams and the athletic departments and their relationship with that enforcement is probably better than it was a few years back, if that's fair to say. Is that the case? Have we found a more copacetic relationship between the honor code and student athletes at BYU?
It sure feels like it. I can't speak to specifics or any information that I've gleaned myself, but I get the sense that if such a thing is possible, that there's a little more chill and more understanding. Again, I'm not speaking specifically, just generally, but I think that BYU understands that, hey, we're heading in a great direction. There's great representatives of the university from all walks of life. None more out in front than kind of Jake Retzlaff as a Jewish quarterback, which has been amazing. And let's be honest, like the honor code is an advantage to those who want to be at BYU. Like BYU's not recruiting in the same space as a lot of people when it comes to the LDS athletes, like you mentioned, because they're the kids that have interest from BYU because they are members of the church. So while for certain kids it might be a deterrent or whatever, I would say the vast majority of people that BYU goes after, they're kind of in on it. BYU's not going after that many athletes that are anti-honor code. Like it's inherently part of the deal, and to many a big reason why they want to be here in the first place.
I'm going to say something on air that I never thought I would say ever in my life. If you're part of the BYU honor code situation, if you work in that honor code office, good job. Good job for staying out of the headlines. Good job for not being part of the larger sports discussion as BYU does have this moment. Congratulations to all of you, whatever you've done down there, BYU honor code office, to make this possible for all the student athletes at BYU, whether that's progress or whatever. Like, good job, because I remember several years being on local radio being like, why do I have to talk about this? I don't want this to be the headline. I don't want this to be the story. I want to talk about the sports side of things. And I don't want, even though I'm a Ute, I just thought that sometimes this is people's this is the business of the athlete. This is the business of their family. And now it's public because of this extra thing. So good job, Honor Code Office. I never thought I would say that in my entire life, Jerome.
You know what? They're a Power 4 honor code office among all the Power honor offices. Let's go. The honor code, it's certainly a thing that I wanted and the reason why I came to BYU. And so it's good to see that, we can worry about other things like NIL and transfer portal nowadays and playoff seeding and automatic bids. Those are, the on-field product certainly is good. But the whole experience at BYU has become pretty cool. And the culture that Kalani is given, it's like, it's not for everybody, but for those who come here, I think the vast majority certainly love it.
Jerem Jordan, my guest here, BYU insider, and of course, friend of the program as we do a little red and blue discussion. Because we started with a football recruit, I will stay in the not yet at BYU space. AJ DeBonsa continuing. It was the Allen Iverson Classic, 72 points over a couple of games, and just when you see a guy against elite competition show that he is the elitist of the elite competition, it probably feels better and better. How much attention are BYU fans and are you paying to what he is doing right now?
Tons. We actually recorded an interview with him yesterday and aired it on BYU Sports Nation today, and it was fun to kind of talk to him at length for the first time. And we learned a lot about him. I asked him if living in Hurricane influenced his recruiting, like being in the state, and he said yes, he loves the state. He said it's pretty chill. He loves Hurricane because no one bugs him. You can go to the grocery store and no one's coming up and kind of hounding him or whatever. Like he loves the Beehive State, which is great. And he said he grew 5 inches in 3 months when he was 14. That's when he kind of realized, like, hey, maybe basketball is a thing for me. And getting to know him, which is great. Xavier Staten, by the way, the center out of Vegas, who's a top 40 kid, he's actually transferred to Utah Prep, might play some USA with him as well. So it's fun to see those two kind of together, two high-profile guys. So I think BYU fans are very interested in what he's doing because BYU fans are certainly caught in, hey, let's snap this 3-game losing streak tonight. But they're also like, man, AJ's coming, and we have this massive build. He doesn't play a game for BYU for like 10-ish months. We have to get to early November. So it's still a long ways out, but it's, man, couldn't be more excited for him. It's going to be amazing. The influence, like, honestly, signing AJ is like bigger than signing the number 1 quarterback almost, because the influence that guy can have in basketball is greater than in football. And so it's wild. Don't get me wrong. I'd love the number 1 quarterback. But Ben Olsen part 2, but he stays. Who knows? Jay keeps, but it works out. Who knows? But like AJ certainly feels like the real deal, man.
Can I ask a stupid question? We a lot of headlines about the NIL deals and how, this guy's going to be making a lot of money. Some of those are true NIL deals, and some of those are the way that NIL has become a thing at the college level. When does that faucet turn on for someone like A.J. DeBon? It's happening already, right? Because he's got like energy drink deals and that kind of stuff going on.
Yeah. He has a Red Bull deal, and then he has a Nike deal. It's not a shoe deal. He clarified with me. It's not a shoe deal. It's a Nike deal. I think
Not yet,
Nike
AJ. Not yet.
Runs out in a year or whatever. But, yeah, there's cross-country athletes at BYU that have deals with non-Nike. So when they compete for BYU, they wear Nike, but when they practice or post on their own social, they're wearing other companies. So it's interesting. And then there's even, like, NIL deals with high school kids now, which I don't know all the details on those, but it's interesting that they can sign. So capitalism reigns, I suppose. So yeah, it's pretty interesting.
I remember when this was all brand new. I remember reading about Quinn Ewers, who of course is front and center. Quinn Ewers signed like a kombucha company deal when he was a high school senior, I think, in Texas, and he had like $1 million kombucha sponsorship. I was like, I cannot imagine being 17 or 18 years old and someone just like, hey, just take some pictures with this glass jar of smelly vinegar drink, and I'm going to give you a bunch of money. But that's what these athletes are doing now, and it is bananas.
It's wild, and high school kids have agents, and the AAU circuit in high school basketball is wild. Like they're playing where they can get paid, and you have a skill that people want to pay for, and you end up doing it and profiting. And if that's what you want to do, that's great. Like I think it's obviously it's got to be managed well. And AJ talked about how he's taking finance classes. He's in a real estate class at Utah Prep, so I think he's going about it the right way. And then his dad Ace is by his side through this whole thing, helping make sure he manages it well. His dad actually played college soccer in France after he immigrated. His mom's from Jamaica, so he certainly got an interesting background. He's from Brockton, Massachusetts, and so he's gonna be a Coug and incorporated into this place forever. After 1 year, BYU had one other one and done, and it was kind of different, right? Sean Bradley played a year before his mission, went on his mission, drafted second, but BYU's never had a guy like AJ DeBon. I can't wait, man.
Well, let's talk about the current BYU basketball Cougars.
That's still going.
It's happening in action tonight against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State coming off a loss to the University of Utah, gave the Runnin' Utes their first Big 12 conference win. So this certainly feels like a potential get-right game for BYU hoops, but why do they need to get right now, Jerem? What's been going on?
Yeah, they're not shooting the ball particularly well from 3, 31% in league play, and then 2 close losses. BYU started league play with a 20-point win against Arizona State. We're absolutely dominant, fantastic. At Houston, lost by 31, got boat raced. That one was tough. Houston's defense, elite. You kind of just move on from that one. But the Texas Tech loss at home, it's a 1-point game with about 5 minutes left, and then BYU does not defend well, and then they don't really make a shot. That was a tough loss. Granted, Texas Tech almost beat number 3, now number 2 Iowa State at home over the weekend. So the Red Raiders are pretty good. But the loss that really hurt was Saturday at TCU. Tie game, 45 seconds left. BYU doesn't make a shot, gives up 4 points, loses by 4. Margin's close the last couple of games. So BYU's not far off from perhaps being 3-1 or even 2-2. And so the fact that Yegor Dambin is struggling, he's going through a slump right now. 1 for his last 23 from 3 is certainly uncharacteristic. And then his assist numbers are good. His turnovers are a little higher than people want at 3 a game. Dallin Hall came off the bench Saturday, which is kind of a new look. They're trying to find the right rotations. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw another wrinkle in the starting lineup tonight. We'll see. BYU figures out what combinations work, like Kanan Catchings not playing great in the last couple of years. The reason to get right is just a touch off. It's not way off. But Oklahoma State, a team that BYU should certainly beat at home. BYU's favored by 15. And then a big game at Utah, of course, at Colorado next week, and then Cincinnati at home. These are all teams that are similar record to BYU of 1-3 or 0-4. And so they're looking at BYU thinking we can get right against them. BYU's feeling the same way against everybody else. So the next 2 weeks are really big for BYU. I think they need to get back to about 500 to feel like they can compete for what you want to be is the top half of the league, so that you can get at least one bye in the Big 12 tournament.
They'll be at the Huntsman Center this weekend, and Utah's had its own struggles. As I mentioned, just one win in conference play, and then they go on the road to play a tough TCU team tomorrow, and then they're back home against BYU. And this is a rivalry game. I had Craig Smith on the show, and I was like, hey, you got a roster of a bunch of newcomers. How deep is the understanding of the BYU-Utah rivalry? It's always been different in basketball than it is in football, certainly. But it's been a rivalry, and in the NIL era, that has changed things. And now that they're conference opponents again, hopefully we see a little bit of a return to what we're used to with this rivalry game. But in basketball, how much of a rivalry is this thing?
Certainly BYU's had more wins than losses the last, feels like 10 or 15 years. But I still think it is. When these two teams line it up in any sport, man, I've called a bunch of soccer and volleyball and women's hoops over the years, and, it feels the same. I know there's the football crowd, the men's basketball crowd, and then the everybody else sort of crowd. But when it's BYU and Utah, hey, when we lace them up, let's go. I think it'll be a lot of fun. That environment's great. I went up to the game, was it last year or the year before? People get after it, and let's see if Utah capture something against Oklahoma State. Certainly have two guys that were committed to or at BYU, and Jake Wallin and Hunter Erickson, who get it. And listen, if Gabe Madsen gets free and open looks, that guy's as good of a shooter as anybody in the country. So, yeah, I'm interested to see what that game looks like. And did BYU come off a win? Have they figured some things out, or are they still kind of struggling in certain aspects? There's a certain vulnerability to BYU right now that they're trying to avoid. And you look at the game at Utah, and for BYU, certainly hope that's a win, but that's a tough place to play.
This is a big picture question. Goes beyond BYU, goes beyond Utah, goes beyond anything. This is me just picking your brain about where we're at right now with basketball and with college basketball. Because when I had Craig Smith on and we talked about some of the struggles, well, not shooting the ball particularly well. And then when I bring you on, what's going on with BYU? Well, not shooting the ball particularly well. And we know that the game has trended towards the 3-point shot and the range shooting in general and perimeter defense in general. Do you like where basketball is and where basketball is headed?
The skill level is higher than it's ever been. I think when you go to a ton of Jazz games, the skill level is so high. In college, there's not as much space. In the NBA, it's so space. It's just pick and roll and finding a guy on the wing or the corner, right? Traditionally, what I liked the most wasn't necessarily the game. It was that you got to know guys for 3 or 4 years. So then you'd be like, oh, that one guy at Duke that flops, can't stand him. Oh, I love that one guard at UCLA, blah, blah. It's hard to just get to know these people, right? And certainly the big names, like we know AJ Dubon's is happening. But that I miss. I guess I don't have a strong opinion either way on kind of where the game is. But in terms of the 3-point shot for BYU, Cougars' percentage of points from three they score, 48%. That's 25th in the country. They rely on the three. The amount of points they allow, 47%, is 347. So BYU giving up a ton of points from three, also scoring a ton from three. So that's a number that you can look at almost every game, which is wild. And it's like, I love 2-point percentage because it's like, how many twos did you actually take and make? BYU's 11th in the country at two. So they probably need to get downhill a little bit more and then find open shooters because not all threes are created equal.
It's such a reversal. How many 2-point shots is this team taking? That's not a question we were used to ask. It's how many threes. Now it's how many twos. That's amazing. Jeremy, you're the man.
Era, man. It's not, you're not throwing it down into Charles Mason and Patrick Ewing for the Knicks, right? Yeah, it's old school, but Yeah, we're what, children of the 90s NBA, late 80s, 90s NBA, Never going to be like that again.
Yeah, it's not. That's probably okay. I don't know how good that basketball was. We just we loved it.
I need Heat Knicks punching it out again.
Jerem, you're the man. Appreciate your time as always. Thank you.
Sean, thanks, man.
Jerem Jordan, a little red and blue, talking some BYU. We touched on that football conversation, got to some basketball. Look, I don't do it with Utah. I'm not going to do it with BYU. Getting overly excited about a 4-star recruit is a fool's errand, but McKay Madsen out of Clovis North, I think he's going to play linebacker at BYU, but you could have him play safety. You could have him play running back. The dude, he's a good player. Go look him up, McKay Madsen. All right, take a quick one. We'll come back, continue our hoops discussion, this time talking about the NBA. Gordy Chiesa, our resident expert, is going to stop by. That's in 3 minutes on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
away, gets it back, and then throws it to Thompson.
He's got eyes in the back of his head, man.
Biggest lead of the night for the Rockets, if you can believe it.
That sound, an alley-oop. Rockets win over the Grizzlies last night down in Houston. Second in the West. Those teams separated by just a game, vying for second in the West. That's sound courtesy of Space City, the Space City Home Network. Gordy Chiesa is our resident NBA expert. He stops by to talk all things hoop. Gordy, welcome again. How are you?
OT, I'm doing fine. And that Rockets, interesting. Besides that winning play for the law pass, they really are overachieving. They've done a wonderful job with Jalen Green was it's his fourth season. And let's not forget, he was the second pick of the draft back in 2021, and now he is really balled out. He's averaging over 30 points a game, 51% field goal, 80% from the foul line, and he's averaging 4.3 made threes per game since January 1st. And so the Rockets is the direct correlation of the whole roster playing well, but Jalen Green's a major talent, has really accelerated everything.
If the Houston Rockets in the West are the biggest overachievers, who's the biggest underachievers in the West right now?
In the West right now, underachievers would be the T-Wolves. And the T-Wolves, yes. And
all right.
The Suns. Yeah, those two, and a half of the Clippers, because they have talent. And so the Warriors are overachieving because they're banged up, and their roster is really not the top. As great as Stephen Curry is, their roster is flawed. So I would say it would be the T-Wolves and T-Wolves number one. Yeah, that's what I would say. Yeah,
right.
Very much.
That's fair. Speaking of the Warriors,
now it could change though. It could change around certainly, but as of right now.
Speaking of the Warriors, Steph, I mean they still generate a lot of headlines. Steve Kerr was talking about how he needs to be better for this team. Steph is hopeful that they're not going to make any crazy, drastic personnel moves. And you look at Steph Curry, and he has been just an exemplary all-star. He's been an incredible face of the franchise. And now, the roster, like you said, it's sort of the house has crumbled around him a little bit. And he's not the player that he once was, but when you're an all-time great like he is, and you've got a limited shelf life in your career, how much do these guys care about finishing out the right way? Because if you're Steph and you feel like, even though I am very much the face of this franchise, if the Warriors aren't going to be contending and the Warriors aren't going to be a place where I can go out with a bang in my career, how much is that going to matter to someone like him, you think?
To him, not really. Others, very much. So he won 4 championships where he was by far the focal point of all 4 of those championships. He had some trusted sidekicks in Clay and Draymond and Kevin Durant, but he was the main focus. I think he's the outlier where he understands that he'd like to be champions again, but he's not going to ask his beloved franchise to mortgage everything to try to be more talented on this roster. So that's what he's saying indirectly. With the Warriors right now, there's a lot of Warriors fans living in Salt Lake City. Kuminga's hurt right now with a severe ankle sprain, and Gary Payton II is out with a strained left calf, and so is Bajensky. And so they're besides the rosters is lacking. Some of the other guys, are really good, young, talented players, have not played. So if I was the Warriors, led by their stalwart, once-in-a-lifetime generational talent, is that I would stay the course and just see how it all plays out. Versus other teams have never done it before. They're going to try to do everything possible to advance as far as playing. And Sean, it starts at the ownership level. So the owners of the Warriors, they've 4 championships. They know what it's like and what the price is going to cost for them. Versus, we'll say the Phoenix Suns with their ownership group, as far as they're trying to with a roster, they're trying to get to the championship type level. whether they keep the roster intact or not, or they make trades.
Gordy Chiesa, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. So no drama, no soap opera unfolding in Golden State, no matter what it looks like. But the soap opera continues in Miami. Every time I have you on, I talk about this. It looked like they were going to, reconcile and try to make things work, at least from a functional standpoint. Jimmy Butler, but he still wants to be traded. Is this an impasse? Are we at a situation where the franchise is like, I'm not going to trade you, I can't trade you, and the player will continue to be discontent, continue to be unhappy, and potentially face another suspension?
Yeah, very much. That's going to happen. It's ugly already. It'll be even more messier. So then the Heat is not going to give away Jimmy Butler because he wants to. So they're going to do what's best for them at this moment. So there'll be a lot of dialogue back and forth in the media and social platforms that will be unkind to both parties. My instincts tell me the Heat are going to remain steadfast of what's doing best for them. Jimmy Butler, his contract it's impossible to trade him. Like you have to trade somebody. It's nearly impossible. I know people say, well, you can always make trades. The answer is you can without giving away people. And so he makes next year $52.8 million, a player option. And so that if you do trade for him, just say for the narrative, is that you're saying that the new team that trades for him, that they can re-sign him after next season. And at age 35, Jimmy Butler, even though he's still an effective player, he's not a dominant player, which he once was. And so that becomes part of the equation as far as his salary.
How well do you know Pat Riley?
Very well. And he's one of the all-time greats as far as the coach and also as far as management. 3 NBA titles in Miami, and they've always been good, literally the last 30 years, minus 1 or 2 seasons. And so he's going to do what's best for them. Now, I know he's old school, so that's a concern. However, that he's the main guy there that helps the coaching staff and the players. And so they drafted very wisely. And let's not forget, 2 years ago, they're in the Eastern Conference Finals. And so they're good. They have a good franchise that has solid footing. So I know him very well. I have a lot of respect for him.
Well, you answered what I was going to ask you because, I mean, look, I've been an admirer of Pat Riley, but he does strike me as one of those guys that is going to stand on the principle and he's going to do whatever is best for the franchise because, when you've been in the game this long, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you've been in and around the game at a high level for that long, there's a sort of bulletproof aura that comes with it, right? Like, no matter how good the player is, you've seen great players come and go, and you can't be flexed on by some of these young guys who, in their little world, of course, are the king of everything. But Pat Riley just strikes me as one of those guys that you can't really shake him.
Very much. That's an understatement, and that's why the Heat remain competitive through all the ups and downs of the NBA. And speaking of competitive, I want to make a point right now, Sean, about I've asked this question for so many Jazz fans at the games or on the street. Today the NBA announced, Sean, the draft lottery selection date. So it's Monday, May 12th.
Okay.
So, Sean, all the Jazz fans, Monday, May 12th, I'm assuming, Sean, at night.
Guys, a bunch of rookies. Isaiah Collier had his best game so far early in his career. Showed a lot of toughness at the end of the game and ended up hitting the game-winning shot in overtime. What do you think of Collier's performance?
Oh, tremendous. He had a great game. That guy has got talent. And again, let's not forget, I'm making a point about this. He was the 29th pick of the draft last season. So again, the narrative has always been, if you're not picking, high in the lottery, that means that you can't have people that can play in the NBA. Well, this guy can. And so he had that great, I call wiggle drive to the basket where the ball came into him and he faked a handoff and he made that wheel dribble and went to the top of the cup and he finished. And that was very impressive. With Keontae George being out, the last 5 games he's played, he's averaging 8 assists per game. And that's very, very impressive. So 8 assists per game, Isaiah Collier, and he had a career high points against the Brooklyn Nets, 19 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, and 1 turnover. So the answer is I'm thoroughly impressed. Also, I'm impressed by he didn't play last game because they rested him, but Walker Kessler's having really a tremendous season. Sean, this year he has 16 double-doubles, and he's second in the NBA in block shots, and he's the most accurate field goal percentage shooter in the NBA. I get it. It's via dunks and lob passes. He's shooting right now 72% from the field.
He's going to be part of like the rising stars, at least in the All-Star weekend, right?
Yes, he is. Oh, very much. Yeah, he'll be in the Rising Star game, and he will be a factor. And that game, Sean, ironically, is going to be All-Star weekend this year. Is Valentine's Day? Sure, I know it's your favorite holiday.
It's my favorite holiday.
I no doubt.
I'm so romantic.
Friday, yes, you are. Friday, February 14th through Sunday, February 16th, and the All-Star weekend is going to be in San Francisco, California, hosted by, ironically, the Golden State Warriors. So it's going to be a love fest for Steph Curry and all the other NBA players. And so we shall see. It's the NBA. There's so many great stories. Sean, the Phoenix Suns. Now those guys I mentioned earlier about them is that they're 4-1 the last 5 games. And here's what happened with them. They off the bench now is a Yusuf Nurkic and also Bradley Beal. So since that change where they had it, they're 4-1, and Devin Booker is averaging 26.6 points per game, 8.8 assists. Kevin Durant's averaging 24.8 points per game, 5.4 rebounds, and 5.3 assists. But Bradley Beal, who's a guy that was taken from a starting role to now off the bench, he's playing tremendous. He's shooting 53% from the field and 17.4 points per game and 4.2 assists. So let's all watch the Suns with that subtle change if they develop more chemistry and more fluid offensively.
Gordy, give me something I should be looking for in this contest with the Charlotte Hornets for the Utah Jazz.
Well, the first thing is that, Sean, that the Hornets, I call it igloo shooting. They are the worst shooting team in the NBA in field goal percentage. They're number 30, 42.5%. So when you're look at the Jazz defense. If they can overpower the Hornets offense, some self-inflicted by the Hornets, I might add, but can they have that stick hand defensively and really challenge the shot? And that the Hornets really are scoring starved, they call it, where they're 29th in the NBA in scoring. The only team worse than the Hornets as far as points per game average offensively is the Orlando Magic. Watch for the 2 main guys. LaMelo Ball, he's missed 11 games this year, but when he's played tremendous for them. 29.7 points per game and 7.4 assists and 5.4 rebounds. But the problem is that he's a wobbly shooter. He's only shooting 42%. So your main guy is shooting below 40%, and your second main guy, Brandon Miller, is only shooting 40%. So watch those 2 guys if they shoot better in their point of view. But for the Jazz, more importantly, is that can they really guard them and make sure those guys keep continuing shooting very wobbly.
Before I let you go, Gordy, what's the list today?
Okay, list today, Sean, I've been thinking about it because the Jazz play tomorrow night versus the Hornets and then the Pelicans back-to-back games this weekend. So both these teams have a lot of guys that are former Duke University players. So Cooper Flagg will be probably, if not the first pick, definitely the second pick. So you can debate it, 1 or 2. That's a different discussion back in when they're picking in late June. So here's the list today, Sean. Former Duke players that are currently in the NBA. So in the NBA right now, there's 23 of them in the NBA. I'll go through this list very quickly. All right, from the Suns, Grayson Allen, Tyus Jones, Mason Plumlee. From the Mavericks, Kyrie Irving and Derek Lively II. From the Pelicans, Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram. From the Hornets, the Jazz next opponent, Seth Curry and Mark Williams. From the Magic, Paolo Banchero and Wendell Carter. From the Jazz, Kyle Filipowski. From the Celtics, Jason Tatum. From the Nets, Dariq Whitehead. From the Raptors, R.J. Barrett. From the Hawks, Jalen Johnson. From the Wizards, Marvin Bagley. From the Grizzlies, Luke Kennard. From the Spurs, Trey Jones. From the Lakers, Cam Reddish. From the Bucks, Gary Trent. From the Pistons, Wendell Moore. The last one from the 76ers, Jarrett McCain. Now, I bet you're wondering, Sean, who has the most NBA players from a school currently playing, and that is University of Kentucky. Sean, they have 30 guys in the NBA roster as of this morning. Kentucky Wildcats.
That's insane.
Insane from one school. So, Sean, and NFL, they'll be like, say, Alabama, like Georgia, Clemson. Usually those guys are all defensive safeties or corners or running backs offensively, all those guys. So 30 NBA players for Kentucky, 23 from Duke. Here's the last point about this, Sean. What about a Duke connection with the Utah Jazz? Carlos Boozer, two-time All-Star 2007 and 8, Olympian in 2008 in Beijing. He's a former Duke player and a former Jazz head coach. Quinn Snyder is a graduate of Duke University back in 1989.
Okay, wait. So you said 30 players from Kentucky, right? 30
Kentucky.
players.
Yes.
All right. And
23 from Duke.
And how many guys are on an NBA roster, active guys on an NBA roster?
17.
Okay. So I just looked at Alabama, 77 guys on NFL rosters this year, right? But
Okay.
that an NFL roster is 4 times as large as an NBA roster. And that's
Right.
not counting practice players and things like that. So
Correct.
what you're talking is like Kentucky, if you compare it apples to apples, is double the production even of Alabama when it comes to pro players. That's bananas.
That's correct. Right. And that's John Calipari, Kentucky. Now it's Mark Pope, former BYU coach. And John right now is at Arkansas. So that's the power. And it's Sean, let's add to that, component, NIL money.
Oh, yeah.
So that's part of the component now. It wasn't like, 5-6 years ago, but absolutely is right now. And so Cooper Flagg will be the 1 or 2 in the draft. You can debate it. We'll talk about it in earnest in the next 5 months. So it's crazy. So just Sean, this is my list of the day. Former Duke players. Go Dukies. Go Blue Devils.
Love it. Gordy, thanks for your time as always.
Thanks, Sean. Peace out.
Gordy Chiesa, our resident NBA insider, longtime coach, assistant coach, personnel man, stats guy. He's just done everything around the NBA. And I love when we have him in studio and he brings the whole gigantic binder and all of his notes. Just now you can see that on the YouTube channel. It's been part of the Gordy Chiesa reality for a long time. Now you get a look at it. All right. Look, something was said at the press conference today by Kyle Whittingham that made me feel a little bit sad. Not like I'm going to cry my eyes out kind of sad, but just a little melancholy over one of the comments made in response to a question from Kyle Whittingham at this morning's Utah football press conference. I'll tell you what got me in the feels a little bit next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. You want some tickets to see a Runnin' Utes home game? Text Utes to 33986 to win a pair of tickets for Utah basketball. Do it right now. Maybe you could grab some for that BYU contest coming up this weekend. It's a red out. Everybody wear red to the Huntsman Center. This morning, Utah football had a press conference. Kyle Whittingham, Morgan Scalley, new offensive coordinator Jason Beck. Those comments are available at ESPN700sports.com on the podcast version of the show, wherever you get your podcasts. The thing that got me a little bit in the feels, Kyle Whittingham was asked about Cam Rising. He said, Coach made the comment that, Isaac Wilson is the only returning quarterback, scholarship quarterback on the roster. Big rebuild in the quarterback room, big rebuild in the running back room. The offense altogether is going to be very new look in the 2025 season. But, of course, because Cam Rising presumably is going to be granted his 8th year of college eligibility, and it would be a possibility that he could be on this team, although not as a starter, but potentially as a depth play. He was asked, Coach Whittingham was asked about, well, what about Cam Rising? Do you know his decision? And Coach Whitt said he's talked with Cam Rising several times, but he's going to leave it to Cam to make whatever that decision is public. Now, he did say, he offered a little bit more insight and said he's not listed on our roster, so you can probably draw some conclusions from that. And without directly telling us that the Cam Rising era is over at Utah, this is the end. Unless, of course, we're talking about him as a graduate assistant, as a coach. But as a player, he's not on the roster, all right? And the coach is telling you that he's probably not going to be put back on the roster. That bums me out. And I know that people got really fatigued on the whole Cam Rising conversation. Is he healthy? Is he not healthy? I've said it dozens of times. I'm going to say it again. Injuries are unfortunate for the player more than they're unfortunate for you as the fan. Cam Rising was on his way to being the number one quarterback in the Utah record books, a guy who was going to make a serious case for himself with another successful season as being the greatest quarterback in the history of this school at the college level. And instead, a glorious 2-year span comes crashing to an unfortunate end, where it goes out, instead of going out with a bang and riding off into the sunset, this whole Cam Rising thing ends with a whimper. That bums me out. Now, I know that the relationship between Cam and the fans and Cam and the media got more and more complicated as there was uncertainty. And look, Cam with the coaching staff and the messaging got really complicated. I think he did his best with us in the Rising Report this year. Before he got hurt, even after he got hurt, he came on. And he was, caught between telling us how he really felt, not knowing me well enough and having enough trust to tell me some of the stuff that, could have painted the picture a little bit clearer. And, of course, the edict, the mandate coming down from on high, like, hey, don't give anybody any extra information. We want team staff to prepare like you're the one starting, right? And then it just didn't work out. And so the Cam Rising era appears to be completely over at the University of Utah. And while there were far more salient and important and, hey, what's going on with the program type things that were asked and answered at the press conference this morning, that one for me is the most, emotional of the things. Because that's a dude that everybody was in love with. He was the leader of the leaders. He was the cult of personality. He was the star of the little promotional videos. He was the man. He was the traditional, old school, 1980s big man on campus at the University of Utah. And it didn't end the way he deserved for it to end. And that bums me out. I don't like it. I respect whatever decision is being made by him, his family, this coaching staff. Some weird part of me held out hope that Cam Rising would be like your backup quarterback who came in and led you to a win and saved your season or something, and that we'd at least get to see that version of him as the last visual example of Cam Rising in a Utah uniform. And instead, we get the Arizona State game, it sounds like. That sucks. All right. Got to take a break. Hour number 3 begins next with Jeff Schwartz. We'll talk about the NFL playoff wild card weekend that wrapped up last night. Speaking of not ideal endings, after a great weekend of football, the Monday night version, we got that stinker of a game. We'll talk about all of it with Jeff Schwartz in 3 minutes on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
At the 38 of the Rams, the Viking quarterback has 3 receivers to the far side. And he gets the shotgun snap, and he gets a block from Ham, and he sets up, he's hit, he fumbled the ball, and it's picked up on the play. It's Jared Verse at the 50, near sideline 40, foot race to the 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown! Touchdown, Rams! Darnold fumbled the ball. The Rams linebacker picked it up. 57-yard fumble return touchdown.
That sound from last night's wild card debacle for the Minnesota Vikings comes from Westwood One. Kevin Harlan on the call of the 57-yard fumble recovery for a Rams touchdown. After a great wild card weekend in NFL football, that bonus game on a Monday night didn't prove to be the best contest, but still worth watching. Jeff Schwartz, longtime veteran of the NFL, former Oregon Duck as well, football insider, joins me on the Sean O'Connell Show on a Tuesday. Jeff, how are you?
I'm good, buddy. I find it weird how people obsess over how college football rosters are made. Like people get so worked up about like who develops who gets the credit for it. It seems so odd to me that like people get worked up about those things.
This sounds like you're bothered that someone attacking Oregon for buying players. What's going on? Where's this coming from?
Do we buy players? Is that all we do? No, I don't get. I just don't get the development thing. Like you can get developed many different ways, and you could be a portal player. You can not be like for example, does Utah not get credit for developing Cam Rising because he was a portal player? Does that go to someone else? I don't get that. Like no one would argue that, right? You'd argue that at the school where you played your best and sort of helped them win is where you were developed. And yet when schools go ahead and sign those guys and develop them, then it's looked at as a bad thing for some schools. I don't understand that thought concept.
I think there's only validity to that, and even then it's debatable if you are grabbing guys on like a 1 year, you got 1 year to finish out your career. You've already been an All-American. You've already been a whatever. And somebody clearly, you're a mercenary.
Yeah.
Somebody grabs, and even then, there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, because those are the rules in college football, and that's what you can do as a player now. But if you're talking about the who gets credit for developing, like if you're already well developed,
I agree.
When you land at Georgia or Ohio State or Utah for that matter, and you end up being a great player there because Utah State made you into a great player.
Yeah.
I'm still going to give the Aggies credit for developing.
I agree. Like Oregon doesn't get credit for developing Dylan Gabriel.
Right. Right.
Like,
yeah.
But Bo Nix, they absolutely do get credit for that. He was looked at as a bust.
Yes, 100%.
And all of a sudden he's at the Heisman ceremony and just started a playoff game where Sean Payton forgot how to call football plays. I don't know. I'm not in charge of that offense. I gotta say, if I was, I would not call the plays he called.
I'm giving all the credit for Jaden Daniels to Arizona State and Herm Edwards, right? Is that the?
Yeah, I think you have to do that, right? Or you give the credit for the sanctions to Herm Edwards. Tell you what, man, Jaden Daniels, buddy, he is a good football player.
He's a really good football player.
Rookies should not look that way in road playoff games, but he was fabulous.
What happened to Sam Darnold? Did he just regress to the mean?
Yes, he turned into a pumpkin, but he is. Fo, you hear Fo? He agreed too. He said pumpkin.
Yeah.
I heard, no, I think my kids just got home. He said pumpkin. No, look, I mean, I think that this was sort of not in him, but it's different when geez, he will not be quiet.
That's all right. We're dog lovers on the show, so just power through.
It's a lot different when the pressure's on you now, right? And Sam Darnold progressed this season to the point where he deserved to be judged based off of those pressure moments, right? Because we know he played well when it wasn't quite as pressure filled, and then the two biggest games of his career, he failed, Sean, and he failed kind of spectacularly. They only scored 9 points the last two games they were in, right? The Lions game and last night, and it wasn't all his fault last night. I thought the protection was not good, and there were some other concerns I had with how often they try to pass the football. But the fact is, it's not that he regressed the mean. It's just in the pressure moments, the ones where we just judged quarterbacks a little bit a little bit with a fine tooth comb. He just failed in those moments, and some quarterbacks are not ready for those moments. And look, to be fair, he's only had 2 of them in his career, so it's not like he's got a lot. We don't have a large sample size, but it looks worse because he played well for so many weeks. And it's also worth pointing out the Vikings coach Kevin O'Connell, who was going to win Coach of the Year. We think he's a really great young coach. He's had 3 must-win games in his career, and they have played poorly in all 3, right? He, as a Vikings coach, his first year, they made the postseason, which they weren't supposed to make. I'm with anyone who says that. But then the Giants, they lost the Giants at home in a playoff game. And then the Lions game, 2 weeks ago, that was a must-win. They didn't really win that game, right? And then last night. So it's fair to question, I think, everyone when it comes to the failures last night.
So I see a lot of conversation about how much money that costs somebody like Sam Darnold. Is he going to be a victim of confirmation bias where people were like skeptical that what we saw from him in the regular season was actually Sam Darnold and that maybe, he was going to eventually do what he did and turn back into a pumpkin? Like that's a very real concern, I think, if you're a player and this is your profession. And
yeah,
it's not like he's going to be on the streets and poor. But there's a big difference between somebody saying, hey, we actually think you're a franchise guy and we will throw that kind of money at you versus we'll keep you for now.
Yeah.
You'll be our bridge to a high draft pick.
Well, there's many different ranges, as you mentioned, that we could see here, sort of outcomes, right? The first one was obviously the idea that he's now worth that $60 million range, right? That the next line up, and I think that's certainly sailed. That's not going to happen. The question becomes like, what's the next tier? Because he's the 4th pick overall. Did I have that right? 4th pick overall. So, he's going to always get looks because of that. That's the way the NFL works. Like draft pick bias is legit. So he's out of the $60 million range. Some team will convince themselves that, if we could just sort of hone in on those big moments, like, if we could get him to play better in those big games, we saw we can do in the regular season, we can get ourselves a really quality quarterback for sort of the Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith range, right, Sean? $30 million a year, right? Like if you are the Jets and you're sort of in this moment where you could sort of use a bridge quarterback to something else, maybe $30 million a year sounds great for Sam Darnold. Maybe if you are other teams like the Raiders, like you want to just have 1 year of Sam Darnold as you work in a rookie quarterback, maybe you want to go that direction. So maybe you are the Dallas Cowboys and you draft Shedeur and you need a bridge quarterback, and I worked that in there pretty well.
I didn't even have to go there. You went there for me.
He's 1,000% taking that job, by the way. I don't know why anyone thinks otherwise. Like there's no, he's offered the job, he's taking the job, which he's going to be offered the job.
Okay. If he's going to be offered, you kind of have to, if you're confirming to people that you talk to him, you kind of have to hire him now. If you're Jerry Jones, you can't be like, yeah, we talked about it, and then I decided, no, that's not what I'm going to do. Like this is a very Jerry Jones thing. Like you go out and you get the guy that's going to be the most talked about guy.
Yes.
And I'm going to love it. I will be sad to see him out of the Big 12 because we're going to be covering a lot of stuff in Big 12 football. But him with the Dallas Cowboys, like now you got to do Hard Knocks in season and preseason with Dallas again.
Well, and he has his own Amazon Prime show. You agree this is happening, right? If this is out there, it's happening.
I do believe it. Yes, yeah. I think that, and I think whether you've decided that that's the best thing, I think that whole conversation hinges on you promising that you're going to do your best to get Shedeur. I think that's like you got to convince Dion that you're going to try your damnedest to get him, and then he'll take the job. And probably you'll say we'll sign Shiloh when he falls out of the draft. I don't know, something like that. But yes, I think it's happening.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense for Jerry Jones. I mean, Adam Schefter said today the 2 candidates are like Jason Witten and Deion Sanders. And think about, he let McCarthy go. McCarthy's a really good coach. I don't know if he's won a Super Bowl. I don't know if he's the best coach in the world, but it's a good coach. And let him go in a cycle with not a lot of rock stars. We think Ben Johnson's good. We don't really know. It's so funny, Sean, because when Deion was hired, we said he'll probably coach till his kids are gone, and then he'll go somewhere else. And that was the sort of thought, and people laughed at that. That no way, he's did it forever. And it's like, no, he's not. He's only coached. He's been head coach 4 years, and only 4 years with his son as a quarterback. And he's not. He's taken the job if offered, which we agree. What does everyone do with their prime gear?
What do you mean? That becomes all the more valuable. Like,
well, I mean, do you, like if there's another coach, you show up at the Colorado game with your prime sweatshirt on?
yes, you do. Absolutely.
So we've talked about this for many years. I mean, can you imagine if Utah just took their name off of a sweatshirt and put "Wit" on there? You'd be like, "What? Wait, what are we doing?" If
right
like,
now
look,
there's an entrepreneurial young mind listening to this program, Jeff, that is doing exactly that. That is, they're creating a domain name. They're buying it right now. You just launched a business for some 22-year-old go-getter.
Well, if Oregon ever went to championship, I'm going to rename the school Dan Lanning, so I understand. But like, this week we talked about this for a year and a half. Like, we thought it wouldn't work probably, even though it has, and that he would leave after 2 years. And I think he's going to leave. I think he's going to be a fine NFL coach. Like, I don't know if he's going to be the best and they're going to win championships, which they can't do in Dallas anyways. But I think he'll be perfectly fine. I think he'll be middle of the pack. He won't embarrass himself. Probably not winning many championships. Because I don't know if his son is that good enough to be like a difference maker in that way, right? You look around the NFL right now at Jaden Daniels and all the quarterbacks in the AFC. Like, I don't, if Bryce Young gets a little bit better and Caleb Williams finds a coach, I mean, there's many ways that, the NFC has a lot of young quarterbacks that are really good. Is Shiloh that good? I don't think so. But I don't think Deion will embarrass himself. I think people think that that's going to happen, and it's not going to happen.
I think that he's the right guy to be the sort of there are NFL head coaches, and certainly this is true in college as well, where you are actually calling plays. You're heavily influential on scheme. And then there are other guys that are they're the figureheads. They're the faces,
the
right?
CEO, yeah.
You're the CEO. I think he's the perfect CEO. I think he's the perfect, I think he'll be great with player personnel. And I think if he hires the right offensive and defensive coordinators, then you have an opportunity with him as kind of like the guy who takes all the bullets or the criticism. Yeah, he's going to get the credit, but then you're the offensive coordinator that gets the most out of Shedeur Sanders, and then you get a head job the next year, whatever. So, I think that just like he is at Colorado, I think he's the perfect face of an organization.
That I agree with. And it comes down to, again, hiring your coordinators, right? Who are your coordinators? Who are those guys going to be? Because that's going to matter a lot to your success. As
and
we know.
Warren Sapp, Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator, that's music to my ears.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be as higher there. I don't think it's going to be as higher.
What
but
do
I
you mean? He hired
better.
him in Colorado.
Is he going to just transfer his staff over to the NFL? I mean, Pat Shermer's already there. He's got someone to call plays for him. I mean, the other part of this obviously is how do you actually end up getting Shedeur, because where you draft and then you have to trade up for that probably. Got to get rid of Dak Prescott. There's a lot of moving parts here from actually execute this like they want.
Jeff Schwartz, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking about the NFL playoffs wildcard weekend in the books. Jaden Daniels did look incredibly impressive. His numbers, late game on the line numbers as a rookie have been amazing. There's another guy on that team on the defensive side of the ball that everyone around here loves. Bobby Wagner played his college football at Utah State University, as you're well aware, and he's in his 13th season in the NFL. 11 times he's been first or second team All-Pro. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, which you don't get a ton of from Utah State these days. You were contemporaries with Bobby Wagner for a while. Did you play against him? Do you have Bobby Wagner memories where he made you look bad or where you made him look bad?
Well, everyone makes me look bad. What year what year was he drafted? Do you remember?
13 years ago, whatever that was. 2012 was his draft year.
Yes, we played him in 2012 in Minnesota. We lost that game, but Adrian Peterson rushed for a bazillion yards because he did it to everyone. And then I didn't play Seattle again in my career. What makes these guys, I think, so good is their ability to read and diagnose plays. And we saw that play early in that game the other day when he just sort of He hemmed up. He was just in the backfield like immediately with Brian Robinson. It's like that's what it is, right? It's the ability to read and react, and the ability to basically be a game wrecker, right? Disrupt the offense and get by the offensive lineman. I mean, this is what all these guys, Ray Lewis and Luke Kuechly, I mean, guys I played against that, Willis and Bowman in San Francisco. It's just the ability to read and react to what you see in front of you. And he still does a good job of that. Because, as you get older, obviously, you get a little bit slower, right? And not as agile. But if you're able to know what play's coming, then you're able to sort of mitigate some of that. And I think he does a good job of that.
Yeah, he's awesome player, fun to watch. Everyone that had interactions with him around here, I mean, seems like a great guy. Haven't talked to him in many years, but good to see him still thriving in his career. Was able to recover a fumble and help the Washington Commanders move on 23-20 over the Buccaneers. So now you've got Lions-Commanders. Do the Commanders actually have a shot at getting past the number 1 seed in the NFC?
I think they're going to be a popular choice for an upset. I think the Lions are going to roll them this weekend. Last week was obviously a very special game for the Commanders, and I have friends who are the Commanders fans. I mean, they're over the moon, as they should be, because you found your coach and you found your quarterback, which is just a blessing in the NFL. But this is a little bit different of a beast in the Lions. You have a rested Lions team. You have an offensive coordinator in Ben Johnson who's really good and has just done a masterful job this year of breaking down defenses. The Commanders' defense is not very good. And I'm just concerned about sort of how this game feels like it's going to go for the Commanders. I think they could possibly make it interesting with some just sort of Jane Daniels-ish plays late in the game. But I don't think they're good enough to go into Detroit and make Detroit sweat with the way Detroit plays at home. But more importantly, just they've had a week off, and we saw yesterday just like how important that time off is. With like the Rams looked so energized after taking Week 18 off, and the Lions obviously had that bye after having the 1 seed.
What book would you read on the sideline on the bench if you were going to read a book on the bench to prove a point?
Maybe something about like some kid's potty book or something. How to go to the bathroom.
Everyone poops.
Yeah, some self-help book like that. That'd be really. I mean, how funny was that? Like, that's so passive aggressive, right? Like, I'm reading this self-help book on the sidelines. Screw you, quarterback.
Okay, so you're the only one around here that's been on an NFL roster. When that's going on, and he's like, "What do you mean? I always read on the sidelines." And clearly, he's trying to send some kind of message. Your team is winning and advancing in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Do you walk up to him and say, "Hey, shut up. Save this for another time. Yeah. We're trying to win playoff football games." Or do people like, "Hey, yeah, you know what? Only one catch. When you're a talented player, we got to use you more." Like, where does the team fall on this?
I would think Lane Johnson would have a word with him.
Okay.
And say, like, "Come on, man. Like, what are we doing here?" By the way, I mean, congratulations to that author. I mean, his book is now like first on Amazon.
Yes, it went from Zach looked this up. He was like 543,000th in the top bestsellers all the way up to number 1. So, you know what I'm going to do, Jeff?
What?
I wrote a book. I wrote 2 books, actually.
I know you did.
You have NFL connections, all right?
Get one of your books on the sidelines?
Can you get one of my books onto the sideline and have somebody read it? Can you do this?
I mean, I don't know if the Chiefs' offensive linemen are going to want to read your book, but I can try my best.
Well, I don't care if they actually want to read it.
Oh, just
AJ
like
Brown's
it's out
not
there.
reading the whole damn book. Okay, he's just please let's find a way to get my book onto an NFL sideline. Have somebody zoom in on the cover. Boom, number 1 bestseller on Amazon.
It would be pretty funny if like "Eat My Schwartz" was being read on the sidelines.
How great would that be?
I should. Oh my God, that's actually a. Oh,
that's a brilliant marketing play. If you could actually make that happen.
I wonder if I could like. I'm gonna text. I know Lane's marketing guy because he's with Duke. I'm gonna text Brian after this with a picture of my book and be like, "Can Lane read this on the sidelines, please?"
Eat my Schwartz, our story of NFL football, food, family, and faith by Jeff Schwartz and Mitch Schwartz.
Yeah, it was
and Ghostwriters.
We totally wrote that book. Yeah. Thank you, Seth Kaufman.
Yes,
Great guy.
so great.
Give him a shot. I gave him a review recently on like something else he was doing. So good. I'm glad Seth was able to help us out there.
Hey, $30. Come on.
But
Come on.
yeah, that book did the bare minimum.
Come on.
It did what you thought it would do, which was basically nothing. So, yeah, the publishers they got their money back. I think we made just enough to get our money back.
Are the Rams now like a team of destiny?
No.
No? Okay.
I think it's a bad matchup for them. The Eagles didn't play terribly well, and I think offensively there's legit concerns. Just I don't think that they just it's not as crisp as you want it offensively for them, Sean. But what the Rams do well, I think the Eagles have answers for us, right? So the Rams obviously we know like to rush the passer. We saw last night, right? Well, Eagles' offensive line is really good, right? I mean, it's going to be hard. And then you look at sort of offensively, Stafford's really good against man coverage, against cover zero, the things the Vikings do. The Eagles aren't going to do that very much, right? And, if they're able to pressure Stafford because their defensive line is really fantastic, get outside dome team. I don't feel as comfortable with the success the Rams are going to have in this matchup. If it was close, it wouldn't surprise me. And the Eagles, if they find the rhythm on offense, it's probably not that close of a game. We'll see. I think we could have more blowouts this weekend. I know that people don't like that and whatnot, but I think that game, outside of Buffalo, I think we could have 3 games that might not be competitive.
That Bills-Ravens game feels like, this could be an AFC championship if the Chiefs didn't exist. But
that's unfortunate. It's not. It's going to be a heavyweight. I don't know who wins the game yet. I have no idea. I haven't dug into all of it yet. But
Baltimore 1-point favorites right now. You like
it keeps going back and forth between Ravens and Bills as far as a favorite. It's going to be a great game. It does feel like one of those games like last score type of games, right? Like last score wins, and who has the weird turnover, which you can't always predict in games like that. So it does feel like maybe something weird's going to happen to give us a winner, and then of course the Chiefs will be waiting for hopefully a beat up Bills or Baltimore team.
All right, look, before I let you go, the LA Fires,
yes.
Very very scary situation. That's your hometown,
yes.
Palisades. Your high school burned down on the first day. Your parents are still good. Your family
the high school actually survived. They're actually reopening next week, which is kind of shocking.
Wow.
Yeah, so like the parts that burned down are the ones we saw in video.
Okay.
The rest of the school is brick, so it actually survived.
Okay, good.
The bungalows they added and some of the baseball, football field. Look, obviously, the thing that is no surprise. Frustrated me the most is the social media talk about what's happening in Los Angeles. A bunch of people that don't live in LA all have opinions about what should or shouldn't be done. The fire department and everyone involved in trying to put the fires out has done an incredible job, Sean. They deserve all the credit. Obviously, a tragedy and loss of life has been terrible, and property and homes have been just destroyed, and people go on the internet and sort of just have opinions of how things should be done. I'll tell you, when I first saw the fire pop up, I texted a couple buddies of mine that I went to school with and said, this is bad. We all knew where it was at. Like once it started with the winds that were happening, it was not stopping. And so it seems like they've kind of quieted down a little bit. The containment numbers are interesting. It's more contained, I think, than they let on, because that's just the way they report it. But they have a couple more bad days of wind, and hopefully they can get through this without anyone else dying, any more big fires. They've done a great job of just trying to manage this, because it's much tougher than people think. It's also, I made this point on social media, it's not fire season. And I want to make that point many times over. It's not fire season. So this is not normal. They don't happen in January. They happen in September and October when the Santa Ana winds are strong. And because, there hasn't been rain since May and it's a little bit warmer than usual this time of year, the winds were 100 miles an hour. We saw the videos of those the tornado, the fire tornadoes. You
So
know,
scary. So
and
scary.
we saw photos of, there was that video of that McDonald's in, I think in Pasadena and Altadena, that was getting just like the embers were being flung around. It's wild. And so, again, I just want to give a shout out to you can donate to LAFD, the fire department there. There's other places to donate. Obviously, people need clothes and the last thing I'll say about this too, obviously a lot of focus on the Palisades fire and where that city is at. And you know, the lack of empathy frustrates me, because yes, that is a wealthier part of town. It doesn't mean the people that live there are wealthy, right, Sean? Like, they've been there 30, 40, 50 years. Their wealth is their house, you know, like it's the location of their property. It wasn't that way 50 years ago when they bought it. And so I just think we gotta have a little more empathy, man. Like, yeah, it's everyone's struggling here on this, and we just should acknowledge that, you know, these people are going through a really hard time. And if you can give anything and, you know, donate anything you can, or you have clothes or anything, I mean, everyone's gonna need it. I mean, the amount of structures that burned down and people that lost their homes, it's going to take years to recover.
Well, I'm glad your people are okay. And,
yeah, we're fine.
I appreciate you giving us those thoughts and always weighing in on all the football stuff. And we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, buddy. Talk to you next week.
That's Jeff Schwartz. And, yeah, he grew up in Palisades. And his feed is actually where I saw the damage really starting to ramp up, because that's his hometown that burned down. A lot of people affected.
Yep, it's really sad to see.
All right, we'll take a quick break. This is interesting, all right? There's a hill about the transfer portal I'm willing to die on, and guess what? College football coaches don't agree with me. We'll get into that next on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. All right, I've made it clear how I think the transfer portal should be adjusted. All right? Single transfer portal window, as I've said many times, you do it after spring football is over. You make student athletes commit to their school for an actual year. All right? You show up before camp in July, and then if you want to leave, you can leave the following May. You get an actual sense of whether or not that university, that community, that team is a fit for you. That's how I would do it. The Football Coaches Association, FBCA, the American Football Coaches Association, AFCA, had a vote, and in a unanimous show of support, FBS coaches voted in favor of a proposal to reduce college football's transfer windows down to a single transfer window, a single 10-day period in January, so that you can stop this confusion around bowl season. You could stop this confusion around the winter high school recruiting signing day. And, of course, they've now proposed guardrails, but there are no – you can't put that genie into the bottle. People are going to be tampering and offering money, and the only way that you can really, in good conscience, protest against that is if you yourself are never tampering or trying to buy another team's players. And, of course, everyone is doing that. So don't listen to coaches when they lament how broken it is, because they're part of the break, all right? But the transfer portal timing, I think, is an important issue. Telling people the transfer portal is open in early December, where conference championship games are yet to be played or are just being played, and then bowl season and the college football playoff is coming, and now all of a sudden guys are like, hey, should I leave? You can't have it.
Yeah, I remember you and I were talking about this last Monday as well.
You have to have a situation where college players know where they are and know where they stand for at least a whole academic year. That right now in college sports, in NCAA football, is July, early August through end of April, early May. That's when finals are at these institutions, right? Make them stay the whole year. Give them enough time to meet a girlfriend. Give them enough time to get to know a professor's name. Force them to actually know where the grocery store is in the community before they can be like, don't want to be here. I'm leaving. That is not, again, college is all about learning what you're going to be, how you're going to conduct yourself as a professional, as a human being for the rest of your life. When you give people an option to pack up and move every 4 months, that is not how your life is going to be. That is not preparing someone. That is not preparing a student athlete, a football player, for what life will be after college is done. I think that the window should be post-spring ball. The unanimous vote from coaches, though, is that it should be post-season in January. That means they want these guys in their building for the winter conditioning program, for spring. And I could see why, as a coach, you would find that appealing, because now you get a guy, again, for a whole year. Now, it's not an academic year, but it is a whole calendar year, because they can't transfer. The window doesn't open again until the following January. It's January 14th, and we are still a week away from the final game of the football season being played. School has been in session for a week. This is the coaches telling you, like, yeah. Well, we'll get them academically eligible. We'll get them into class. They'll be in class a couple weeks late. But let's do this in early January. If you want to make it January 1st through January 10th, you're going to miss a couple of days of class potentially. Fine. One transfer window is the right move. And you'll notice that this transfer portal window opening is not the same time as the high school football early signing period. It's not the same time as bowl preparation for all but, I guess it would have been 4 teams in the country. There were only 4 teams left when we got to this point, to early January. You have to do something in college football. early January, 10-day window, all the coaches who voted in favor of this. This is the quote from Craig Bohl, who is the AFCA president. These recommendations are intended to allow student athlete and coaches more opportunity to focus on their season while preserving the opportunities for athletes who choose to transfer to still be able to do so for the spring semester. We looked at all kinds of information. I'm convinced our coaches care deeply about the student athletes, so this decision was made through the filter of allowing them more stability and to be able to move forward. No, wrong. This was not about the student athletes and what's convenient for them. This is about what the coaches think can help them be successful in preparing their rosters for the following season and maintaining their roster through bowl season. That's fine. This is coaches voting in their best interest, and they can probably extend that, I guess, to the student athlete if that's how they really feel like they're that magnanimous. But the right way to do this, the best way to do this, I will die on this hill, is a guy goes through the season and then he goes through spring practice because you didn't make the depth chart the way you wanted to in the football season. Fine. That's a 2-3 week process. Then you go through the season, you go through the lifting program, you get to know the culture of the team, you get to know your coaches. They either like you, they hate you, whatever. You go through spring football, you practice, and you actually establish some level of a pecking order. If you can't crack the depth chart in spring, you're not going to crack the depth chart, okay? That's when it is time to transfer. Expecting your coach to have some high hopes for you while you're like a third-string linebacker, you're the fourth tight end on the roster, and they've got a game plan to install. They've got players on the injury report. They've got high school recruits visiting all the time. The season is not when coaches care about your future. It isn't. Spring football is when college coaches care about your future and when they care about the future of their own roster. That is when the determination should be made by player and coach about whether you belong. During the actual season, if you're not already on the two deep, you're not really getting much of a look. I don't know why people fail to understand this. The only thing that makes a coach really care about third string and beyond is injury. Third string and beyond actually do get a little bit of a look in the spring because that's what spring is about. So the right way to do this is to do it post-spring. Coaches want to do it pre-spring because they think they will have some assessment of who belongs on their roster or not after that season is over. You have to take them at face value. You have to take them at their word. I understand that. But I was on a roster, a guy fighting for a spot in 2 different places, all right? And during the season, they are not allowing you that many opportunities. There's not enough practice reps to go around for you to climb up the ladder unless, of course, an injury happens in front of you or the guy in front of you drastically underperforms. Coaches are not having mad epiphanies about, you know what? That guy's had a really great week of practice on the scout team. Let's make him our second stringer this week instead of our third stringer. They don't do that. But they want an opportunity at least. You fix things one at a time, right? The first step in the mess of the transfer portal dual windows is to reduce it to 1 and to not have it coincide and interfere with other things that are more important to your coaching staff or equally important to your coaching staff. They voted in favor of moving this to January. Fine. Do it in January, and then we'll figure out whether January is the right time. They'll probably keep it there. They won't move it to the end of spring, even though they should all be listening to me, and that would be a better time to do it. But right now, early January is the proposal from the AFCA. Will the NCAA, will college football move to this? To be determined. Before I take a break, a reminder that ESPN 792.1 FM have a cash kickoff going on right now. It's time for your shot to win $1,000 to pay some bills with a little bit of cash. $1,000 cash to win if you text WALLET to 508-777-1000 for a chance to win. 508-777-1000. This is a nationwide contest. Also, for the hat lovers in your life, if you haven't heard me talking about this, if you haven't seen on the YouTube channel when I wear my red Utah, the U suede hat, the Flip the Script series, the Utah, the BYU, the UVU, the Utah State, the Kansas State. They've got a bunch of really great brands that they've already partnered with, and they continue to add more. A local company that has dropped some incredible apparel and some incredible hats. Wood and Grail. That's Wood, the letter N, Grail.com. Sign up for the newsletter, get the exclusive discounts that way. But more importantly, know when the hats are dropping so you can get on the first release. These things do sell out. woodandgrail.com. Check them out. Tell them OC sent you. And if you're not ready to pick out the hat, just go grab a gift card so you're prepared when the new drop happens, when the new alternate color of the Flip the Script or of the suede or of the snapback or the trucker hat for your favorite team. When that thing drops, you want to have that gift card already in hand so your loved one or yourself who's into these hats, you can just pick it up right at the drop. Go sign up for the newsletter, woodandgrail.com. Little crosstalk with Spence Checketts, wrap things up, and a message for Utah drivers when we return. Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. We'll get Spence Checketts in here in a few minutes, unless he's on remote today. Is he on remote today, Zach? He might be out. Sean O'Connell show wrapping up on a Tuesday. Our final segment brought to you by Advanced Windows. $2,500 off 10 windows or more. Tell them OC sent you. Locally made, locally manufactured, installed, warrantied, and it's people you trust. The mayor of Sac Lake City, Nate Orchard, Jake, they always take care of our folks. Give them a call, 801-850-9100. Take advantage of the early year discounts. Did you see this? The Montreal Canadiens in town for a little hockey action against the Utah Hockey Club. One of their players got hit by a car in downtown Salt Lake. Not going to play. Out 3 to 4 weeks. This was apparently a auto pedestrian crosswalk action sort of a situation. Folks, slow it down. Relax. Head on a swivel. Emil Heineman, 3 to 4 weeks, that is not insignificant. Now, this is classified because the NHL is weird and doesn't give you any details. Upper body injury. Now, upper body injuries could be concussions. Upper body injuries could be shoulder, elbow, rib. You got no business smashing into pedestrians. We already have bad reputation as drivers here in Utah. Unfortunate situation for the Montreal Canadiens as Emil Heineman, hit by a car in Salt Lake City, will not play. He's out for the next 3 to 4 weeks. Okay. Wrapping up some thoughts here on the Utah football press conference that happened. I am quite certain you will hear more of that from Porter and from Spence on the drive. Now, Porter Larson was our guy who actually went up there and was conducting the he was getting us connected, got the sound, plugged in the equipment, etc. I knew he was up there. I'm here to do the live show. So I sent him a tweet. Hey, ask this question. And it's one that I think Kyle Whittingham got a little distracted and didn't give his best answer to. But Utah football, we know this. Culture is such a big thing. Utah football offensively leans very, very heavily on the run game and always has. Now you have no returning running backs. You have no returning running backs coach. Quinton Ganther, who, of course, was a player here first, is no longer the coach. Mark Atuaya is your coach. So Kyle Whittingham has made he's made a lot of comments about how difficult it is to maintain culture when there's not guys to teach the culture to the new guys, or when there's fewer guys to teach the culture to the new guys. Well, in the running back position room specifically, there's nobody. Now, Mark Atuaya is a good coach, so he's going to lean on the guys around him. You're going to have to do a Utah football culture boot camp for the running backs specifically because there's nobody who played running back for Utah, and there's nobody who coached the running back position for Utah returning in 2025.
Which is wild, too. And Mike Mitchell going to Arizona, too. It's a big one. You have a brand new whole running back room, no running back coach, everything. Culture's
You got to figure it out. You have to find a way. It's crazy. Before I get to Spence here, 2 tickets to PBR Bull Riding Delta Center, February 7th and 8th. If you can answer this question at 877-353-0700, 877-353-0700. How many times was Sam Darnold sacked last night in the wild card game? How many times did Sam Darnold hold on to the ball too long? That's maybe a different question, but how many times was Sam Darnold sacked in the Vikings loss last night? 877-353-0700 for 2 PBR tickets when Professional Bull Riders Tour comes in early February to the Delta Center, 7th and 8th. All right, the Drive with Spence Checketts is coming up next. Spence Checketts is here in studio with me now. Hey, Spence.
Hello, Sean. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much for asking on a Tuesday.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you as well. It's good to be seen. It's a handsome flannel. You're an underrated handsome man. I got to tell you that.
Oh, that's nice of you to say.
I feel like,
that's
you know,
like calling someone sneaky athletic.
But I just don't feel like you give yourself enough credit. I hear you say, I'm growing a beard to cover my double chin.
Well, that is true. But
Well, I'm just
besides
saying.
that, I am very handsome.
Yeah, like, oh, I'm not in the same shape I was when I was 25 because nobody is. And I just want to tell you on a Tuesday, Sean, I think you're doing all right, man.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, good,
That-
good.
I feel good hearing that.
I
from
was
you.
saying that so you would say it back to me.
Oh, well,
damn it.
See, here's
Totally
the thing.
backfired.
Everyone knows you're in shape. You're like you're like back on the consistent workout bandwagon. You're always
Well,
talking about your yoga.
Back in physical therapy now for a torn rotator cuff.
That's unfortunate.
You know what? Physical therapy wears you out. And I'm just doing like the fine
Uh-huh.
movements, because we got to take care of the rotator cuff. And I'm stunned how tired I am afterwards.
The micro muscle movement, the stabilizers.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
They make you a lot more tired, I think. Like, have you ever gone surfing?
Yes.
It's all stabilizer
And
muscles.
you're exhausted.
You're exhausted.
Oh, after 4 or 5 runs, you're like, nap on the beach, boom, done.
Yeah.
That's why all those surfers look like, Greek gods.
Yeah. It probably just is I just have bad core strength, but they're all great.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
What's coming up on the drive?
Well, we will, and you hit it on the head, and you know this, man. Like, the thing about Darnold is he's always held on to the ball just a little bit too long, and a lot of great quarterbacks do, right? So I just don't love this narrative where it's like he's had 2 bad games, and now he's unemployable. Geno Smith got another starting job. Like, there'll be a market for him. So we'll talk about the game last night. We heard from Mike Tomlin today. We heard from Andy Reid today, Patrick Mahomes today. We're getting some media for the upcoming playoff weekend ahead. And then, obviously, we don't get a ton of Utah football content in the middle of the winter. So we'll discuss what Kyle had to say today. And then, just to be fair, we'll play it all back at about 4 o'clock. So mostly football. I will be at the hockey game this evening. So excited for that. So we'll do a little Utah Hockey Club, and there's some good NBA tonight as well. So yeah, pretty much what we do every single day. No RSL today, but we will have Kurt Schmidt on the show tomorrow and Jason Christ on the show on Friday to try to understand exactly what's going on. But today will be mostly college and pro football with a dash of NBA basketball.
Love to hear it. Thanks to everyone who joined us on the show today. I'm sure you're going to get plenty of comments about that press conference from Porter and from Spence.
Mm-hmm.
You can find the sound on ESPN700sports.com and wherever you find your podcasts if you're not able to catch my show or Spence's show live. That's all for the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.